Welcome to MINDSHOCK. This is part 3 of refining the logical analysis system. And we have Craig of Fight the Flat Earth to thank for refining this system because he dropped the floor out of the level of gophery in in even flat earth debate, let alone any type of debate. I'm of course your host, Bruce McGuire, and we will be continuing to develop the most efficient and entertaining system in order to analyze all these different types of debate, which have just stratospheric levels of gophery. Hopefully, we can finish this off in this part. Otherwise, this is just going to get really out of hand. Some of you bastards last night were just way too funny. My sides are still hurting. But we made a lot of great progress in nailing down a very, very efficient system. Hey, Dave Scott, the man himself who came up with dingers. And then I've also added the super fallacy, which can be achieved one of two ways: either a single or double fallacy that's just so astoundingly dumb it would make one spit their drink out if they were drinking, and or three or more standard fallacies maybe wouldn't make you spit your drink out, but just to hit three or more fallacies with a single statement would automatically qualify for a super fallacy. Now, this is a rough draft, so yeah, Mr. One to One. Well, I'm just thinking about last night, like the previous stream. It was just so hilarious. And then also just looking at Craig's face here. As always, if you enjoy the Mind Shock podcast, you can help support the podcast, help logic and reason return to a world where it is quickly going extinct. You can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. You can also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Help support the channel. That way, make sure you're subscribed, hit the bell for notifications. If you're not getting the notifications, just make sure you like and comment on more videos. Like and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcaster requests. You could also be a guest in the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind. Leave them in the comment section. All right, so we'll wait for everyone to trickle in here. Then I'll quickly review what we did so far as we continue to examine just the bottom of the barrel gophery that Craig has brought to the table here in this so-called debate. I forgot who made the statement, but Craig's just built different, and that's true. He's a very unique individual. Mr. One to One. I tried to explain Batman to my flatmate, and the look on his face was priceless. Oh, man. Or should I say, ma'am? Oh, ma'am. Yeah, that's rough. Okay. So we'll wait another minute or two. Again, I know everybody's on different time zones and everything. So we'll try to get as many people in here as possible. YouTube's still obviously being quite weird about sending out notifications. Most people say they don't get them. Batman. You either get it or you don't. Batman. Batman and Catman. They would make quite the dynamic duo. Okay, so I think Heracles said he was going to make it as well. The Heracles rule is a great rule. So, the Heracles rule basically, whenever we're not 100% sure whether something should be elevated to a super fallacy or dinger status, we have to keep in mind the baseline of the individual making that statement to see whether it would or wouldn't qualify. Like pretty much all of pretty much everything that Craig says would be a super fallacy or a dinger for someone else. But since Craig's baseline, just his baseline mental function is so much lower than everybody else, it's not that shocking for him to say, like, even if he says something incredibly dumb, it's pretty standard. It's par for the course regarding Craig. So, so we're not going to give him the super fallacy or dinger for something that's par for the course for him. The parallel, of course, would be, let's say, judges scoring a Mike Tyson boxing match. You wouldn't necessarily score significant shots or power shots for someone else's light jab, but Mike Tyson's jab might knock somebody out. It would be a powerful jab for someone else, but for Mike Tyson, it wouldn't count as a power shot for Mike Tyson because Mike Tyson's power shot is that much more powerful. So the Heracles rule is simply referring to baseline whenever we're not sure. And the baseline is real time updated. So, for example, someone says something so astoundingly dumb or a self-owned faceplant that's just absolutely astounding, the baseline adjusts with it. So then they'd have to up the ante of goofery to score another dinger. Same thing with zingers. Like you score a good zinger, if you say the same thing again, it's not going to count as a zinger because that impact is gone. So adjusting of the baseline. Mike Tyson versus Batman. I need to do another boxing podcast. I did one with Maxwell on the greatest boxer of all time. And I didn't specifically go over Tyson the entire time, but it would be interesting to see because if anybody's seen any of his training footage, I mean, even now, I mean, he would wreck a large percentage of the division. And under the right circumstances, he might be the oldest guy to capture a heavyweight title, which would make him both the youngest and the oldest. And if he were to achieve that, I mean, I don't know if there's ever anybody's even going to break his record for the youngest champ. But if he also captured the oldest, I mean, would that ever happen again? All right, so let's get started here. So far, 6 super fallacies and 10 dingers for Craig. Is everybody ready to go? Everybody all comfortable? No doubt, Mr. One-to-One. If you haven't checked out my boxing podcast on that, Mike Tyson was my pick hands down. If you had a time machine and you basically teleported anybody, any boxer in their prime. So some people want to argue that Mike Tyson's losses were in his prime. They were not. So if you take maybe, some people argue when his prime began, and that's a fair argument. Like if you look at some of his even training footage at 15, 16 years old, I'm not sure anybody could beat him then. I don't know. Some people say he needed to mature a little bit, and that 18 to 20-year-old Tyson was unbeatable. How do we prepare for Craig? I don't know. I don't know if anybody can truly prepare. We can think we're prepared, but I'm not sure we are. I'm not sure. Zetetic in the house. Very entertaining Twitter, by the way. Zetetic's feed is always pretty good. Neil, no more Batman or Batmam. Yeah, my sides are still recovering from the previous stream. So You guys better behave because we're really trying to finish this up. We're really trying. I mean, I know Craig's no doubt Craig is gonna have some more gems. Now keep in mind this is a rough draft, so I have just this rough overlay. And then when we're done, we're gonna go over exactly how to weigh the super fallacies and dingers for final scoring. And then I'll be using the new system to do the official breakdown of part 3 of Craig versus Caleb. And I don't know if it's going to require a part 4, part 5, whatever. I mean, I hope you guys can forgive me, but there's only so much of Craig that one can handle in single doses. So, glitched is still recovered. Can't get out of bed. My sides hurt. Oh man, yeah. You guys better behave. You guys better behave. All right, so let's get going. If nobody has any questions about the quick system overview, for the once the system's set in stone, obviously I'll be having new sound effects for both super fallacies and dingers. All right, glitched. Come on, man. Or should I say, come on, ma'am.
Most of science is just monitoring things and see if it matches predictions.
Oh man, this is gonna be terrible. Most of science. So the vast majority of science is just monitoring things. Not coming up with theories, not testing results, not manipulating variables, but just monitoring. Just hanging back, eating Cheetos. I mean, I don't know. Now, clearly, this would be a super fallacy and dinger for anybody else. But invoking the Heracles rule, according to Craig's baseline, this isn't that dumb because keep in mind, you've already spit your drink out so many times from all this goofery. Is this going to cause you to spit your drink out again? I don't think it would. Obviously, we need the feedback from everybody in the chat. But according to Craig, most of science is simply monitoring CCTV. So basically, the greatest scientists in the world are these fat security guards just drinking coffee, watching CCTV monitoring. So, are security guards the greatest scientists in the world, according to Craig? Why are they not recruiting like night security guards for all these scientific experiments? Because they're the experts of just monitoring. Because if most of science is simply just monitoring and seeing if it matches prediction, so not coming up with valid experiments, not testing anything or manipulating variables, or even though math doesn't prove anything, I mean, you still have to kind of know it and implement it to quantify results. But according to Craig, most of science is just monitoring. Is that enough for a dinger or super fallacy? I mean, we're on the fence here. I don't know. I really don't know. For anybody else, yes. For Craig, I mean, there's a question here. There's a question. Most of science is monitoring. So is it also kind of like psychics? According to Craig, are psychics good scientists? Because if they're just monitoring the palm reading, they're monitoring palms, making predictions, and then if that happens to happen to the person whose palm they read, and the prediction is true, would that make like palm readers and psychics the greatest scientists, along with CCTV security guards, according to Craig? Oh man, we're not off to a sensible start here. My sides are really gonna. I don't know how long we could last on. I mean, this is literally the first thing he said in part 3. How are we gonna survive this? Okay, so does anybody think this is enough to meet the criteria of super fallacy or dinger? Equivocating palm readers or CCTV watching security guards to to basically being these scientists. They would be the best scientists because if most of science is simply just that, why would you need any other skills? Let Craig cook. Yeah, this is gonna take a well, because again, even with the Heracles rule in mind, I really Paul Blart baseline. He does kind of look like Paul Blart, like a chromosomally damaged Paul Blart. Okay, so is this enough for a dinger or a super fallacy? Most of science is just monitoring and seeing if it matches prediction. Nobody has an opinion on this? I need help here. Like, I really don't know if this will qualify as a super fallacy or a dinger. Because not only is that a false premise, I mean, you could also say that's a hasty generalization logical fallacy. You can say that's an appeal to extremes fallacy. I mean, it's so tough. I mean, you could also say that's a vagueness fallacy because it's just so vague. It's super fallacy, easy call. So Glitched says not a dinger simply because the Heracles rule would prevent that from being a dinger because of his baseline. But since technically that statement is three or more fallacies, yeah. No, I think it's a super fallacy because that would be a hat trick fallacy. That would be false premise, hasty generalization, and vagueness. So we just started and he already hit a super fallacy. Okay, so he's at 7.
Which variable was manipulated? What is a control? You won't find Craig talking about any of these things because he doesn't even know what they are. This is so painful. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I hope the MindShock listeners understand the level of pain this is.
And that's exactly what they did in the Eddington experiment and every other similar experiment that's been done since then.
With over 400% deviations.
So again, we had to adjust the baseline. So again, for anybody else, this would be both a super fallacy and dinger. Although he said that is what was done in the Eddington experiment. It wasn't, so that's false premise. And every other experiment, so that's kind of sorta not just false premise, but he roped in reification. Trying to think, does that hit any other fallacy? Is saying every other similar experiment. I guess it would be because it would be reification, false premise, and also the vagueness fallacy because he didn't specifically cite which ones. So that would also be a super. He just did another hat trick fallacy. So he's up to 8 super fallacies. Oh, Alien Big Cat, you should have been here last night. And for those that are new, the super fallacies would remove the regular fallacies. So once we go over it for the final count, if he's got 8 super fallacies, he would only be at 211 regular fallacies because we counted that one as a super fallacy. Okay, so let's continue.
And none of it matches anyway, and they threw out a ton of data that didn't match just to make it look like a match. How many times are we going to go over Craig's ignorance here of Eddington and the subsequent follow-up experiment? I mean, this guy's done zero research on the subject. Notice he hasn't provided a single source. Not one source.
The surprise in my voice It's just so hilarious. Like, I really had no idea what I was getting into. I really had no idea in analyzing any debate with Craig.
The fact is, it was a prediction, and they formed an experiment based on the prediction to see if it matched the hypothesis. It did.
That's a fact, because it didn't. They
So hold on. So is this another super fallacy? Because the level of false premise here. I mean, I guess the baseline has been adjusted so many times that we can't count it. Does everybody agree with that? Because obviously, not only did it not match, but all the other follow-up tests or so-called experiment, none of that matched either. So he just spewing blatant falsities. But are they enough to qualify for a super fallacy? And you guys got to get under control with this Batman stuff. Let's get focused, people. Let's get focused. So, would that be a super fallacy of him? Well, it's not necessarily lying, but it's still false premise. It's a huge false premise. It's a blatant false premise. But he kind of spread it through 3 different statements. So Craig flatlined his baseline. It's a DQ. I mean, unless, of course, Craig is the super genius actor who can go full retard and pull it off, then maybe he is lying. Again, I don't claim anything is true or untrue, but yeah, it's not necessarily, but the false premise is just, it's so massive. Is it enough to qualify for super fallacy? I mean, I don't know. I keep thinking about what Dave Scott said, where you want to be as reserved as possible with these numbers, but on the other hand, we're still trying to be accurate. He said that the Eddington experiment matched the predictions, which obviously it didn't. Now, is that super fallacy enough based on the fact that he's also now melting down, spiraling, and getting all animated about it? I mean, does that is that enough of a deviation from the base? Because we have to keep emotions and pauses into it, as we were going over yesterday. When somebody's in the middle of some kind of verbal diarrhea, spew, ramble, filibuster of goofery, that might not have the same weight as taking a pause and giving a measured response with particular inflections. All right, let's take a vote here. I mean, is this blatant false premise given with this religious fervor and conviction enough to qualify for another super fallacy? I would say no on the dinger simply because of his baseline. But for super fallacy, because the context is part of a greater point, I don't know. I'm leaning no just to try to be as conservative as possible. For anybody else, obviously it would be a yes. But for Craig and his baseline using the Heracles rule, does anybody disagree? It's a shame Heracles isn't in here yet. Or is he hiding somewhere? Super fallacy, no? Alright, I'm leaning no unless someone wants to make a case for it. Religious dogma is double up. Wait, Glitch, so you're voting yes on the super fallacy? Do we need to start a Dunning-Kruger? Well, technically, all of this is related to the Dunning-Kruger effect because the Dunning-Kruger is built into the regular fallacy, the super fallacy, and the dinger. Because if he wasn't suffering so severely from the Dunning-Kruger effect, he wouldn't be making any of those. Wait, Glitch, so you think it's a super fallacy? So Glitch wants to count how vehemently adamant Craig is about Eddington predictions, the results matching the predictions. Actually, you know what? That would actually be a double false premise, right? Because wait a second, hold on a second. That would be a double false premise because he's trying to say, well, first of all, it's false, so it's a false premise, but also he's trying to wrap it into his false premise of what the scientific method even is. Because even if it did match the prediction, that still wouldn't be the scientific method. So that's a double false premise. So now we have a new dilemma here. Do double false premises, would that automatically qualify for a super fallacy? I'm not saying they should. That's just something we're considering. Steel City, I actually don't even have a webcam. I'm going to steal this line. I have a face for radio and a voice for print. So, what's everybody's opinion? Should a okay? So, a hat trick fallacy is where you use three different fallacies in a single statement. But what if it's double of the same fallacy? Does it have to be triple of the same fallacy? Because I'm not even sure context would allow a triple false premise. I mean, I guess it could, depending on what was being discussed, but it would be so rare, it would probably never happen. Except maybe Craig could probably hit it, but because this isn't just about Craig, this is about using the system for any analyses of any debates. So, should a double of the same fallacy, like a double false premise, should that automatically be a super fallacy? How many fallacies did you wrap up in one? I mean, this is like a run-on sentence, so I don't know. All right, so this is the current question. Should a double fallacy immediately qualify for a super fallacy? Because Craig just hit a double false premise. Because one, the prediction didn't match, and two, he's trying to allege that a prediction proves something in adherence with the scientific method. So that's a double false premise. So Glitched says yes. A double fallacy should automatically qualify for a super fallacy. I think yes too. Just hearing myself explain it, it seems like it'd be warranted. Dave Scott, what do you think? Zetetic, what do you think? Mr. One to One? Well, a hat trick fallacy, but that's not the same fallacy. That's hitting three different fallacies. Because think about how goofy you have to be to hit two of the same fallacy in a single statement. Not different fallacies, but the same fallacy. I mean, Craig's clearly up to the challenge, but Matari, the triple is for different types of fallacies. Because in what I actually can't even think of a situation where you could hit a triple false premise, because the context would have to have three layers. Because right here, there's two layers. Because Craig thinks that if something matches a prediction, that's following the scientific method. So that's a false premise in and of itself. And then he's also saying specifically in relation to Eddington's experiment, the predictions matched, which they didn't. So that's a double false premise. The triple minimum, the hat trick, is for different fallacies because it's not that hard to do like a circular reasoning, begging the question, hasty generalization, or false premise, or red herring. You could spin 5 or more fallacies in a single statement. I mean, Craig does it pretty often. That's not rare. But to hit the same exact fallacy twice in a single statement, I think that's rare enough to warrant a super fallacy. Because the context where you could hit 3 of the same exact fallacy in a single statement, I don't think that would ever even happen. Correct, Mr. One to One. 2 if it's the same fallacy, but 3 or more for different fallacies. Okay, so everybody's on the same page here. Baseline keeps the rules succinct. Yeah. Well, regardless of baseline, the baseline only comes into effect whether or not a single fallacy will be counted as a super fallacy. Because the single fallacy has to be so astoundingly dumb and goofy to make you spit your drink out. So a triple fallacy or more, regardless of how basic it is or what the baseline is, hat trick fallacy automatically qualifies as super fallacy, and now we're establishing that a double fallacy automatically qualifies. So in the case of a single fallacy qualifying for super fallacy, we would have to resort to baseline for that one. Okay, it seems like we're all on the same page here. And then for dingers, we also have to keep in mind the baseline. So there'll be 3 different ways to get a super fallacy. And the Heracles rule only applies when there's only one fallacy that can hit a super fallacy. All right, let's continue. We're making great progress here. You guys started behaving. Just don't bring out the Batman jokes just yet. Or the nunchucking woodchuck Chuck Norris fan watching Chucky movies. Okay, at Chuck E. Cheese. All right, so let's continue here.
Threw out everything that didn't, and even the result that was left.
Oh, wait, did I actually add the fallacy after saying that? No, I didn't. So he's at 9, right? Caleb's at work. I actually invited him for the stream. He was bummed he couldn't make it. I did want his feedback as well, because this debate is actually what is making us refine the system. So I didn't add the 9th fallacy, right? No, I didn't. Okay, so we're going to add the 9th fallacy. This is a historic moment. This super fallacy is the first double fallacy. It was a double false premise. Making history here. Yeah, Mr. One to One. Mr. One to One, were you the one who said Craig's just built different?
Was over 400% error from the follow-up observation.
Actually, and just to further, come on, Dave, just to further drive the point home, the false premise wasn't based on a slight error. So it was over 400% error. So we have to keep that in mind for the false premise as well. Glitch, you do realize we talk over each other on the same podcast, right?
I mean, this is just so painful. I have to say, this is probably the most painful one. I don't know if Craig's going to get more fallacies than Sartain.
Oh, did I still forget to give him the 9th? Oh, yeah, I forgot to add the 9th super fallacy.
Or even that Brian Myers goof. But this is definitely the most painful.
They analyzed the results and they found they failed to falsify their hypothesis, the scientific method.
Well, hold on a second. If he hadn't announced the scientific method there, I wouldn't be asking if this should be another super fallacy. Because they failed to falsify, which is obviously a false premise. But the level of conviction that he just randomly stated the scientific method, I think I'm going to say that qualifies for super fallacy status. I mean, because he upped the ante in his level of conviction, even according to his own baseline. I mean, the confidence with which he just randomly said the scientific method, even though this has nothing to do with the scientific method. So, false premise, but just the confidence level. Yes, Dave Scott, I'm going to do like a pre-recorded one where I just go over the rules with all the graphics and everything. Kind of like, I don't know, when you watch any sport, I don't know if they do this for most sports. They still do it with the UFC, I think, at the beginning of the event where they say you can win by submission or knockout, and then the scoring is based on a 10-point system, etc., etc. I'm gonna do something like that, just like a little 30-second pre-recorded video explaining the rules of the scoring system. Come on, Mr. CCTV, the scientific. Okay, hold on a second, but let's go back to the level of conviction. Just the confidence with which Craig just said that all of failure to falsify is the scientific method. Oh, should we actually have a graphical representation of baselines? Wow, that would be taking it to next level. The whole screen would be covered. Unless it was transparent, I guess. But I don't know. Almost like a health bar in a fighting video game. Okay, hold on, though. Hold on. Does anybody else think he should hit super fallacy even though that was only... Well, theoretically, hold on a second. Did he hit the hat trick? Because we have false premise. It's also a non sequitur because the scientific method has nothing to do with what he just said. And you could also say that's a vagueness fallacy because he didn't explicitly reference how that's the scientific method. So did he just hit the hat trick? So would that be another super fallacy? Let's get these votes in here. Because just randomly saying the scientific method, I mean, a baseline health bar is actually needed. Well, it'd be a little tricky because the dumber whatever they say, if it's that dumb, their baseline would actually, depending on how it's represented on the screen, would the baseline, because if the baseline drops, that means the next dumbest thing would have to be dumber than the previous dumber statement to qualify for a dinger. Only for Craig. No, I honestly don't know if I could. I don't even know how many parts it's going to take to finish this Craig analysis, but I don't know if I could handle any other Craig debates if they're anything like this. So, what does everybody think of? Should he hit another super fallacy for just randomly saying the scientific method? So, theoretically, you could say that that's vagueness fallacy, non sequitur, red herring, false premise if we're still considering the context of what he said prior. You get maximum combos, combo fallacies. Man. What does everybody think, though? Is the level of conviction with which he just randomly said the scientific method, even though what he just described is not the scientific method, does that qualify for super fallacy? Based on his own baseline, it does not qualify for dinger status. But we could argue that that's a hat trick fallacy. I'm not 100% sure simply because was there a period at the end of failure to fall? I guess there was because he paused and then he just randomly said the scientific method, which would have been a false premise to what he just previously explained. It would have also technically been a non sequitur because it has nothing to do with what he just said. Could also be a red herring and a vagueness fallacy. So would that be enough for super fallacy status? I guess yes, right? Especially the context of this particular debate, like on the previous stream, if we were discussing Britney Spears versus Michael Jackson, who's the better pop star, not knowing the scientific method wouldn't be as relevant in that debate versus this debate. So Zetetic sounds like it's enough. Yeah, I think so too. So we'll go 10. So he's got 10 of each.
Okay, so you would agree.
He just dropped scientific method out of nowhere as if it meant something. Because clearly it clearly is not in alignment with any of it, and he doesn't even know what it is. And then he says you only have to follow 2 steps. in order for it to be valid, and he just says scientific method. He just says those two words without knowing what they are, like a little 4-year-old or 3-year-old. I don't want to insult, 3-year-olds. I'm sure there's a lot of 3-year-olds out there that are smarter than Craig.
With my hypothesis of unicorns, it would be just as valid if the assumptions that I make for the tending of the light towards the sun, it would be just as valid as the bending and warping of spacetime, right? If all the math worked out and we tested and over the math worked out with the unicorns pulling the light towards the sun, it'd be just as valid as yours, correct?
And just to clarify here, if not for Craig's baseline, I would have given Caleb another zinger there, just exposing the ludicrous nature of what Craig is hallucinating here. But since he already did it previously, I didn't add the zinger. I think I did give him the zinger the first time he asked a similar question like that, though.
And another point here, the math didn't work out with Eddington. Like, I don't know how many times I have to reiterate that, because Craig is just pretending and hallucinating it did. Again, I have multiple sources here, one of which is Harvard Labs. Over 400% error rates. Eddington admitted to throwing out the data that didn't match, which is why so many real scientists were skeptical about relativity, because it actually didn't match. Like, that's the main point. So, yeah, I mean, it doesn't even get there, but Craig's mental disability.
I have a question. Should we redo the Sartain debate with super fallacies and dingers? That would probably take like 40 hours minimum.
On full display here. Anyway, I mean, I don't know if Caleb's just humoring the poor guy for the sake of the audience. I'm guessing he is.
You can call it unicorns whatever you want. It doesn't matter what you call the thing.
So again, not a super fallacy or dinger because of Craig's baseline. So for someone else, they would qualify, because clearly calling has nothing to do with the subject here. I mean, we're going around in a circle.
Again, we're not talking about calling it. We're talking about the reason for it. So Craig is just this level of mentally disabled. He doesn't understand that Eddington, if gravity and relativity are at play here, that's the cause. If it's unicorns, that's the cause. It's not about calling a unicorn a Pegasus or whatever, and the name doesn't matter. It's or calling gravity whatever, some kind of magic pull instead of using the word gravity.
Yeah, well, Mr. 1-to-1, you guys aren't helping, because if you count up how many times I had to pause to laugh and I couldn't stop laughing, that probably added at least like 30% to the running time.
That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the cause, not the name. But notice how Craig is too mentally disabled to even be on again, like we're talking preschool, kindergarten level English here. We're not talking about label. We're talking about reason.
The fact is, the experiment is something is warping the path of light.
Well, no. No, it isn't. Again, that's what you...
Okay, hold on a second. Something is warping the path of light. So, wow. So, false premise if the path of light isn't even being warped in the first place. So, if it's not warped in the first place, how can you say something is warping it? Hold on a second. Would that be a super fallacy? It's like a begging the question circular reasoning fallacy, because if it's not even being warped in the first place, and you're trying to assert what is warping it. Mailbox. Bigfoot mailbox fallacy. Okay, hold on. Is that enough for a super fallacy? Because it's not necessarily a false premise, because if the light is being warped, it wouldn't be a false premise. It would still be a circular reasoning logical fallacy because of the presupposition that it's being warped. And it's not a red herring, because it is related here. I mean, is it related enough? but that still wouldn't be a hat trick unless I missed another one. It's not that vague. It's not a vagueness fallacy. So yeah, I guess that's not a super fallacy. Oh, Sphinx Bear is back. What's up, man? So there's no hat trick there. So it's just whether or not that circular reasoning fallacy is dumb enough to qualify for super fallacy. So if we have to default to the Heracles rule, which we might, because it's not a double fallacy of a single fallacy, and it's not a hat trick of 3 different fallacies, I only counted 2. So we'd have to default to the Heracles rule, which according to Craig's own baseline, it is no longer surprising. It is not going to make you spit your drink out that he doesn't know what Caleb is talking about. So I'm going to have to lean no on the super fallacy. Does anybody think it should be a super fallacy? I mean, obviously for anybody else it would be, but for Craig, should it be a super fallacy? So I'm going to lean no. So let's continue.
You would have to prove, presupposing it is, and then building this house of cards, again, as Caleb called out earlier, begging the question fallacy, and obviously it's also a false cause, circular reasoning, logical fallacy as well. And Craig, again, he just can't muster even toddler level brain power. He just can't muster it. And notice how many times he uses the word fact incorrectly, because none of this is a fact.
Well, actually, that's a good point. He did say fact with such conviction. Would that be enough to elevate to super fallacy alone? Quiet, Mr. One-to-One. We're doing our best. I mean, we're dealing with Craig here. Like, what do you expect? Is saying fact with that level of inflection, because in previous explanations, he just kind of glossed, he was just like, oh yeah, this is a fact, that's a fact. But he said, it is a fact, like putting so much emphasis on fact. Is that enough? It's somewhat subjective, but we're comparing to the previous times he said fact, where he didn't say them with this much inflection on the word. Not far enough from baseline from Dave. It might not be. I don't know here, because it just if he said fact without that level of conviction, 100% not enough from baseline. But this brings it kind of close to the base. It brings it close. So I don't know. I don't know. It might be. It's a shame Heracles isn't in here, the inventor of the Heracles rule. If the other rule is when we're really not quite sure, we can give him the benefit of the doubt, right? And we know Craig deserves as many of those as possible. So I guess we'll say no unless somebody... Because he could have added even more conviction. Like, if he's having a total meltdown screaming fact, then we would put it as a super fallacy, I guess, or danger. So we'll leave it alone for now. Let's try to make our way through this.
It's like that's his only cope at being exposed, completely decimated and exposed. He says fact almost like his blankie, like he's trying to soothe himself from getting destroyed on this level. He just says fact almost like some kind of soothing mechanism, like a safety blanket, because clearly he doesn't know what the word fact is. Clearly the word doesn't apply here. Clearly I'm not arbitrarily dinging him with the fallacy counter, because that's a fallacy. In order for me to be objective, I have to count every one.
I like how this went from counting fallacies to trying to figure out if they're super fallacies. Only Craig could have brought us to this point. So we have to give this man credit. If he's a man, I don't know how he identifies, but we have to give this individual credit. Well, unless he identifies as they. Is that more than one individual? Can you identify as more than a single individual? Okay, we have to give Craig credit, regardless of how many or what kind of individuals he identifies as. We have to give Craig credit here because he's really pushing the evolution of this scoring system.
Not give him breaks, because then I wouldn't be objective.
You can call it unicorns. We call it space-time. If you want to form an experiment based on the predictions of unicorns, then that's great. Then we can analyze those results. But you tell me, what would the predictions of unicorns be? How
Obviously, it's a hypothetical. It's obviously a hypothetical. So all I'm trying to show to the audience is
Well, it's not obvious to Craig.
that my reference frame and my assumption of why the light tends towards the sun would be equally as valid as long as the math works out.
So he doesn't even understand the parallel. Like, Craig can't even follow the parallel. Or he's pretending to, not being able to, because he knows he doesn't even understand the basics of the scientific method or first grade English even. Am I being too kind there? Preschool English? Also, some people pointed out, it looks like Craig might have some kind of earpiece. I don't know if that's a headphone or an additional earpiece. Commenters have said he was trying to get help from somebody, because, I mean, just this level of decimation. I mean, who's Craig trying to fool here, pretending he knows something about something? I mean, a first grader can give a better, would have put up a better, I mean, possibly even a kindergartner or a preschooler. I don't want to insult them. They could have put up a better defense than Craig here. I mean, this is just downright pathetic. I mean, there's no way around it.
Craig, do you think math is descriptive or explanatory?
Well, before we get there, we talk about what you just said. Again, you need to have a hypothesis and a prediction and an experiment. If you've got that, you're doing science.
Notice how he never mentioned dependent variable, independent variables, or controls, or the manipulation of variables. So clearly you're not doing science. To do science with no understanding of variables. Oh, man. Again, just props to Caleb. Oh, man. I really didn't know what to expect.
How did Caleb keep a straight face here? Like, I still don't get it. I don't get it. Like, how is he so composed? Like, is one of his jobs actually dealing with, like, mentally disabled children or something? Like, how is he so composed here? Like, I don't know if I could have done this. Oh, man, Mr. Wonder. Like, how is Caleb keeping a straight face here? Should we add another category for people who can maintain poker faces against super fallacies and dingers? Because that's an incredible skill, to be confronted with this level of goofery and not simply burst out laughing or run for the hills. I mean, that's impressive. How do you keep a straight face going against Craig? I mean, this is crazy.
Like I said, I've talked to him a few times in messages here and there. I really appreciated how passionate he was about logic itself. I mean, flat earth, globe earth aside, who cares about that stuff? Just he was passionate about logic itself, and it shows here. Because he's trying to have a logical discussion. But the problem is, it's kind of like having a discussion with a coma patient. I mean, yes, they might be able to recognize, even though when they're in a coma, they might be able to recognize words. They've done brain scans where there might be evidence that coma patients can understand to a certain level people that talk to them. So it's not that Craig is not responding to the stimuli of Caleb's words. The problem is he's not comprehending any. But again, props to Caleb here. I mean, he's trying hard to have a logical conversation. But how can you have a logical conversation with someone who's a borderline vegetable? I mean, I don't know. I don't have the answer there.
Right. But if you're just saying unicorns did it. In what way did unicorns did it? Just saying unicorns did it isn't a hypothesis.
They bent the ether towards the sun. The unicorns were grabbing the ether and bending it towards the sun. Is that better? Does that help?
That was actually kind of funny. Let's see if Craig has a mental breakdown, because I'm assuming Craig doesn't believe that ether exists. But that was actually a very good parallel, because you'd have to prove the ether first, right? Whereas Craig is hallucinating the gravity's already proven, and you're just measuring the results of it. So that's a great point from Caleb. Props to Caleb there.
And do you have a prediction based on a mathematical model for this to happen?
I could come up with it using the law of gravitation, which is just a math model, sure.
Right.
So you're saying it's interchangeable. So you admitting that you can interchangeably put space-time or unicorns in the equation.
And you could see it on his face. So we know he's not a complete vegetable. You could see when Craig was laughing at himself, he knows he got exposed there. And he has no answer for it. I mean, or we'll see what the answer is. But we know, so this is good. This is good. We know Craig is not a complete 100% vegetable.
He kind of reminds me of a devious criminal who just got caught, and that's the look on his face. Because why would he be laughing and smiling if he didn't have some kind of brain function to understand that Caleb just exposed him there? Not that that's a super fallacy or a dinger, that was just an observation.
Because now, whether this is evidence that he's being dishonest and not arguing in good faith, you can take it as, I mean, clearly he's still probably mentally disabled unless he's the best actor ever. But it appears there is some cognitive function. There's some.
Shows that you have no evidence for space-time. That's all I'm trying to. I'm trying to get across to the audience.
Whatever you want. You can name space-time whatever you want. From now on, I'm going to call it Felicia. All right.
Okay, hold on. Is this enough to elevate to super fallacy or dinger? Because of the increased animation, the introduction of the word Felicia. I think people were calling him Fallacious Felicia, right? I mean, or is Felicia one of his alters? I don't know, but he's saying you can call it whatever you want, but that's not what's being discussed. We're talking about having valid controls and variables so that you don't fall for the false cause logical fallacy or the reductive logical fallacy where you pretend all these other variables don't exist simply because something matched a prediction, which it didn't even match if he's talking about Eddington. So all of this is built on false premises anyway. So is that enough to elevate to super fallacy or dinger? Is Felicia enough? Because we also have to keep in mind the surrounding context where he's continuing to not comprehend that what is being discussed isn't what you're calling it, but the methodology behind it. Is that enough to elevate? Now, if he hadn't brought out Felicia, the Heracles rule would say no. But since he brought out Felicia, does that elevate to super fallacy or dinger? Because the super, let's see if he's got a hat trick. So he's got false premise. I mean, not comprehending that this would avoid fallacies, is that a fallacy of itself? Because technically that is a false cause fallacy. He's like he's doubling down on his false cause fallacy. It's not a double false cause, though. He's just reiterating, backing up the previous false cause. Sphinx Bear, exactly. It's not just the moronic statements, it's the delivery of them. That is a great point, Sphinx Bear. That's why we're discussing this, because the fact that he brought out Felicia, because he's continuing to not comprehend, although he did laugh about it. So was that a Freudian slip in terms of the laugh where he realized he got exposed and then he went back in character? Or his Felicia alter or whatever. So that's a false premise roping in the previous false cause and reductive logical fallacy. Also, you could argue it's a circular reasoning fallacy if he's already presupposed that it could only be gravity that's warping the space-time, and here he's actually technically, is he also committing a red herring by pretending it's about what you call it instead of establishing the cause itself? Because technically that's a quintuple fallacy. I'm giving him a super fallacy for that. I think that's a quintuple fallacy. And then we add on top the Felicia. That's without even the Felicia. So he's getting a super fallacy for me unless people in the chat can give a case on why that shouldn't be a super fallacy. I mean, I guess you could also argue for dinger. And if that's, I don't know. You could even argue that that's a super fallacy and a dinger because it's so silly. Because he's failed to comprehend that the subject is the cause and not the name. Dave Scott, Zetetic, what do you guys think? It's a shame Heracles isn't here. I could make the case for that being both a super fallacy and a dinger. Because how many times does Caleb have to explain the same thing? A quintuple Felicia. So you guys agree that it's a super fallacy. I don't know. Felicia's kind of a pathetic cope. So I'm arguing for a super fallacy and a dinger. And I think we need a special name for that. I think we need a name for something that's both a super fallacy and a dinger. A super dinger? A super dinger. I think Felicia's enough to qualify for a super dinger. I'm giving him both, unless somebody could make a case against it. He's getting a super dinger. Dave Scott. Just call it a Felicia. We could also call it a Craig when you commit a super fallacy and a dinger at the same time. So he's up to 11 on both.
The ping of Felicia is what causes.
And now with the reestablished baseline, we're not going to count it every time he says Felicia, because now he has to say something even dumber for the readjusted baseline.
The gravitational effects.
So again, here he's falling for the appeal to humor logical fallacy. He thinks it sounds more.
Actually, I forgot that one. It would also be appeal to humor if he thinks Felicia is a funny name. Otherwise, I mean, is that the number one name somebody goes to? Unless, again, it's a Freudian slip, because he's got a fallaciousness on his mind. He knows he's being fallacious. So that's the first name that came out. Felicia. Fallacious Felicia. So technically, it would have been a sextuple fallacy. That was 6 fallacies in one if we're going to add appeal to humor by using Felicia.
Ridiculous to call it Felicia while missing the point completely, the reason behind what's happening, which is the whole purpose of science. If you could just call a phenomena or whatever, if it's just about switching labels, that doesn't mean anything. Like, what is the mechanism causing it? That's why you need those dependent independent variables and controls and manipulate them, so that way you can figure out whether something is actually causing something else or not. What you call it has absolutely nothing to do with this entire conversation. And I mean, this is roping in. I mean, I'm kind of hesitant to call it a red herring logical fallacy, because that would imply that Craig already kind of knows what he's doing here. I think his mental disability is too severe to intentionally red herring. But here, again, he's going etymological logical fallacy, appeal to humor logical fallacy, and red herring logical fallacy, because this isn't the point that Caleb is making. So he either doesn't understand the point, he's too much of a vegetable to understand the point, or he does have the cognitive function to understand the point, and he knows he can't refute it. So in bad faith, he's just deflecting and going red herring and pretending it's about switching labels, because he can't actually address the real argument.
There we go. How's that? I predict that the warping of Felicia will bend the path of the light. Will bend the light path of a star towards our sun. So I'm going to make a prediction based on the maths of Felicia, and do an experiment. Oh, look, the warping of Felicia has done exactly what I said it to do. Happens that all of the maths and everything around Felicia is also the same as the maths for space-time.
Okay. Oh, man. So the maths. Okay. So we're not talking about the maths, we're talking about the reason why, not the calculation of. So if Bigfoot's delivering the mail, he wants to get all caught up in how fast Bigfoot is walking to deliver the mail. Like he wants to quantify that Bigfoot's delivering the mail at like 8 miles per hour or 11 miles per hour. So if the maths work and the mail shows up in the mailbox, not only could it have only been Bigfoot, but the prediction would have had to included how many miles per hour Bigfoot was walking to deliver the mail. That would prove that it was Bigfoot and not Chupacabra or Mothman. Because if Chupacabra or Mothman would have different mile per hour speeds, it proves that it's Bigfoot, just based on the prediction of the maths. Now, is that enough to elevate to super fallacy? Because let's see. I mean, this would be, well, it could be false. It's not necessarily false premise, because what if it really is a false premise? It would have to be definitively false, because maybe Bigfoot does deliver Craig's mail. I mean, maybe Craig's mom is Bigfoot and she delivers mail. I mean, we don't know any of this information, so it could be true. A false premise is only something that's definitively false. So, okay. That could be a circular reasoning logical fallacy, because you're not allowing for anything outside of that circular logic. It would also be post hoc false cause, so that's already a hat trick fallacy there. Not to mention, if you could also say that it's a red herring. I wouldn't call it a non sequitur, because a red herring is somewhat related but not directly. A non sequitur is completely unrelated. But that would still be, at minimum, a triple fallacy, possibly a quadruple fallacy. So does he get another super fallacy for talking about the maths of Felicia? Not a super dinger because of the reestablished baseline, because now that he reestablished his baseline post Felicia. Yeah, Dave. Only Bigfoot delivers mail, therefore Bigfoot exists. Mrs. Bigfoot. Okay. Okay. I'm giving him another super fallacy for the maths of Felicia, because that was at minimum a triple or quadruple fallacy.
It doesn't matter. I've just used the name of the thing.
Again, we're not talking about the name. We're talking about what's causing it. So he's hallucinating that the basis of space-time, or that there's any warping at all, is going up, and then just switching the label of it. He's stuck on that again, either because he's just that mentally disabled, or he understands that Caleb completely demolished him, and the only thing he can do is red herring here to cope.
Changing the name of something doesn't matter. You can call it what you want, but the mathematical model shows that this thing, unicorns, space-time, Felicia, whatever, is warping based on the interaction of large masses. That's what it shows.
Wow. I mean, that was an impressive stream, was it not? That was a lot of fallacies in rapid succession. Now, what are we going to do with that? Because I don't know if that should count as a super fallacy, even though that was a false premise, false cause, circular reasoning fallacy stack. It was kind of almost a run-on sentence, so I don't know. I don't know. What does everybody think about that one? Should a super fallacy also be a fallacy combo? Like, yes, he said the mathematical model shows that. Star Trek. It's more like Star Trek math proves Star Wars. I mean, this isn't really coherent. Or Star Trek math proves Bigfoot. Star Trek math proves Batman. Star Trek math proves Batman got pregnant. Are we going to give him a super fallacy for that? Or should we add a new category? Or should a super fallacy also include a fallacy combo? Because he just spewed so many fallacies in rapid succession. Come on, Dave Scott, what's your input? It's a shame Heracles isn't in here, but Sphinx Bear, you were here last night. Should there be yet another way to get a super fallacy? I don't know if you missed this, Sphinx Bear, but we added another way to get a super fallacy. If you commit a double fallacy of a single like the same fallacy twice, because Craig hit a double false premise, that also is a super fallacy, or 3 or more different types of fallacies, or 1 or 2 fallacies that are just so astoundingly dumb based on baseline. Now, should there be another way to get a fallacy where if you hit so many fallacies in a row, like Craig just did, like a fighting game counter, where like if a combo gets to a certain level, it starts to have bonus? Or should it be a separate category, like fallacy combo? What do you guys think? We're trying to refine the system here. Should there be fallacy combos? I mean, I think there should, because if we're giving weight to so many single fallacies or fallacies that are double or triple or more upped, then shouldn't we also give credit for streaming fallacies? Like so many fallacies in rapid succession, even if it's only one fallacy at a time and not a stacked fallacy. Just all these single fallacies so fast in a row. Because, a Dunning-Kruger champ can have several different skill sets. Mr. One-to-One wants a chart. Dave, what do you think? Sartain is also incredibly skilled. He's even better than Craig at streaming at combo fallacies. He would be setting records for combo fallacies. But Craig's not bad either. I think if we introduced health bars, it would make it too complicated. Because dingers deplete your own health. Zingers might deplete your opponent's health. Or should there be 2 different bars? Are we going to get like really into some of these advanced fighting games? Because some of the fighting games, they have your standard health bar. Then they also have an energy bar which can recharge. And some of them even have like a 3rd health bar for, I don't know, for special moves or whatever. Or some kind of special metric bar. Like, these are the important questions. Like, we're trying to figure out this system. Should there be fallacy combos? Mr. What? Come on, it's not that complicated. We just added super fallacies and dingers, and there's 3 different ways to get a super fallacy. It's not that bad. And we just invoke the Heracles rule whenever things get hard to judge. Pretty simple. I think the health bars would make it more complicated. I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, but I think fallacy combos, I think that should still be on the table. Like, what is everybody thinking? Fubar temp. That's a great question. I don't know. Craig and Sarge. I think Destiny would be in that category too. I mean, that goof is almost as bad as Sartain. I mean, he might be worse than Sartain. I don't know. And well, with Destiny, it's not just mental disability. He's clearly being dishonest as well. Heracles, finally in the house. We need your help. Yeah, I don't know. YouTube's weird with the notifications. Oh, and CF's back. Okay. So Mr. One, or simple for people with a brain. Okay, so Heracles. We actually, the only thing we changed since yesterday is there's now an additional way to get a fallacy. When you commit the same fallacy twice, you can also get a super fallacy. So Craig did a um, double false premise. Basically, since he doesn't know what the scientific method is and he claimed Eddington's experiment matched predictions, he double false premised. So it was the same fallacy but twice. So that's just an additional way to hit a super fallacy. So the Heracles rule only applies for super fallacies that are single or double, not of the same fallacy, if they deviate from baseline, and for dingers. But if you automatically commit a double fallacy, that's a super fallacy, or a triple or greater fallacy of different types of fallacies. So now we're debating whether or not fallacy combos should enter the equation. And some of these guys want health bars too. But if we do health bars, that's going to get complicated, because if we have two different bars, like for example, if we have a mental capacity bar and that gets depleted the more fallacies you commit, and then we have another health bar where dingers deplete your own health bar and zingers deplete your opponent's health bar. But then I don't know if we should do that. That might be too complicated. But I'm thinking fallacy combos should be a thing, where if you maybe hit 5 or more fallacies in rapid succession, not with a single statement, because that would be a super fallacy, so like a fallacy stack, but a fallacy combo would just be rapid succession fallacies. I think Craig just hit a combo, and we got to figure this out. Heracles, you can go brain dead. I don't know if that's a possibility. I think that ship has sailed for Craig, but are you talking about us trying to analyze all this? I don't know about the health bars. I think that might be too crazy. But the fallacy combos, I think that should be a thing. So 5 or more fallacies, single or more, in rapid succession, even if it's only one at a time, even if they don't qualify for super fallacies, unless if you string 10 or more fallacies together, should that also be an automatic super fallacy bonus? Because Craig only hit, like, I think 7 or 8 with that sentence. I don't think he hit 10. An aggression bar. Or should that be a triggered bar? Oh, that would be too complicated. But what do you guys think of fallacy combos? I mean, I don't know about the aggression bar, because you can be really aggressive and still be correct without committing fallacies while getting zingers on your opponent. So I'm not sure what the purpose of the aggression bar would be. Not yet, CF. It's on the list though. Like, I want to get the system dialed in, and then I'll finish the Craig debate under this new system, and then all debates after that will be under this new system. So Heracles, you think a combo should just count as a super fallacy? I mean, I'm not sure, just because what if it's a really basic fallacy and they just keep spamming it? So it's mostly just like an exercise of verbal diarrhea skill. Would that negate what super fallacies are all about? Because super fallacies are about making a fallacy that's either so incredibly dumb or a stack that's real high. Succession is different. It's kind of like doing a 10-punch combo versus a massive uppercut to take out your opponent. I mean, they're almost different skill sets. I mean, they are different skill sets. So I don't know if we should put fallacy combos in with super fallacies. Dave, I don't think you chimed in yet on this issue. CF, does that mean, so you like this, you want fallacy combos as a new category. And that opens the door to, let's say you hit 10 fallacies in a combo. Should that give you a super fallacy bonus? I mean, I was just thinking in terms of fighting video games, because in certain games, if you hit a certain combo after a certain point, you start getting double damage or whatever. Super fallacy has to be a special move. I kind of want Dave's input on this. He came up with dingers, so I want to hear what he thinks about fallacy combos and combo bonuses. I'm not sure about the bonus, but I think we really should do fallacy combos, unless it's just enough to just have the comedic value of him just racking up the fallacies on the count. But I don't know. I don't know. Here, let's do a poll. Maybe all the other people in here who aren't talking will be more comfortable with a poll. So far, everybody's voting yes for fallacy combos. Will closing arguments include fatalities? I mean, no, but in your closing argument, I mean, you still have the option of zingers, dingers, and super fallacies. So, unless, wow, food bar temp, you're opening the door to a lot of different possibilities here. Unless closing arguments, everything counts double. Well, Sphinx Bear, the high fallacy count wouldn't be interrupted. In a fallacy combo, that wouldn't remove all the fallacies from, that would just be like a bonus category for hitting so many fallacies in a row. Like we could also say like you need 10 regular fallacies for fallacy combo bonus, and you need at least 3 super fallacies if you combo super fallacies. If you combo at least 3 super fallacies, you get fallacy combo bonus. Does that sound fair to everybody? And Sphinx Bear, that wouldn't affect the high fallacy count. Neil's not sure. Everybody else voted yes. So far, nobody is opposed. So either some people didn't vote. Nobody's opposed to fallacy combos being a category. They could be kind of like a secret category where it's not going to be on the screen for metrics unless somebody gets it. Because it's not guaranteed someone's going to get a fallacy combo. It's practically guaranteed everybody's going to get at least one fallacy. There'll be at least one dinger or zinger or super fallacy. So fallacy combo could be like a super category that comes up whenever anybody hits it. So it won't be on the way in the screen unless it happens. Mr. 1-to-1, when you hit 3 in a row, do you get a double score count? What should a super fallacy combo count for? So if you hit 3 super fallacies in a row, you get fallacy combo. But what if you hit 10 super fallacies in a row? Do you just see the debate at that point? Is it just over there? Is that a fatality? CF voted yes purely for the comedic value. But it's not just comedic. I mean, again, we're trying to parallel this to like a boxing or kickboxing match where we're trying to be as accurate as possible with the metrics. Heracles says, I think opening and closing fallacies should count as more or be less baseline based. I definitely think they should be less. So the Heracles rule is not in effect for opening and closing fallacies or opening and closing arguments. Should opening and closing fallacies count as double? I don't know. Because they had time to prepare. Is that what you're getting at? As opposed to just free flow conversation in the middle? Sphinx Bear, I get there'll be different records though. So at the end of this, we'll kind of determine how they're going to be weighted. So who's going to be crowned Dunning Kruger champ? And even if you're not Dunning Kruger champ, you could still hold, like for example, someone who's not the boxing champion, they could still have the most knockouts. Or in MMA, they could have the most submissions, but not be a champion. So it's kind of like the same thing with dingers or super fallacies. There could be like Craig might be the Dinger champion and not the Dunning Kruger champion of the whole organization of logical analysis of debates. You got to have a special sound effect from Street Fighter for super fallacies. I'll look into it. Maybe we'll do. Okay, after this is all done, maybe I'll do another short live where we can get everybody's opinion on sound effects. Heracles, is what even possible? Fubartem, did we talk about what it is you use a super fallacy to counter a simple fallacy? What do you mean by counter? CF, yeah, it makes sense since they had time to prepare. 10 super fallacies in a row. Wait, what do you mean, Heracles? Yeah, we gotta continue this, but we're trying to figure out for fallacy combos because if we're gonna add the fallacy combo category, we have to make the decision now so I can add it because that's the first super long stream of fallacies I think Craig had. That might have been 7 or 8 in a row. So Fubar Temp, a fallacy is like a negative against yourself. So if you say something even dumber than your opponent, like what do you mean about that? Like should you get penalized even further? I mean, it's kind of already built in because if somebody uses a regular fallacy and you use a super fallacy, it is going to count against you more than a regular fallacy. But we actually haven't determined how many fallacies super fallacies are worth. We're going to do it at the end. We talked about it a little bit on the first and second stream yesterday when we were just refining the system. Because if somebody gets 100 fallacies and someone else gets 100 fallacies, the person who got the most super fallacies is obviously going to win. But what if somebody only got 5 regular fallacies, 50 super fallacies, and the opponent got 500 regular fallacies but no super fallacies? I mean, I'm not saying that's going to happen in a debate. It's probably not because if somebody's really goofy, they're going to be they're probably going to be hitting super fallacies and fallacies. And then if dingers and zingers can only cancel each other out, then they're not going to be used in accounting for or against regular fallacies. So everybody 100% voted to include combo fallacies. So I'll include them. Now, this is a rough draft. Oh, Dave, how long were you out? Okay. So we're talking we're talking fallacy combos about adding a new category. Fallacy combos. So that's basically more than 5 or 6 or 7. I mean, I think Craig just committed 8. But if you do a lot of fallacies in an extremely short period of time, you get a fallacy combo. So it's like a bonus category. And you need to get, and if you do at least 3 super fallacies in rapid succession, you'll also hit a fallacy combo. So everybody voted, I did a poll, everybody voted for fallacy combos to be introduced as a new category, just like in boxing or kickboxing. Someone could maybe not do high power shots, but they do, if they land 10 or 20 jabs in a row, that, I mean, they need credit for that. That's a long combo. But it's not necessarily a super fallacy. It's not a power shot. So what do you think about that, Dave? Oh, okay. So you did vote yes. Okay, so I'm adding the combo fallacy combo category. Oh man, this is crazy. I don't even know where to put it on the screen because this is rough. Yeah, I don't think we should do health bars because that would take it just, that would make this impossible. For a super fallacy combo, if you string, so for a regular fallacy combo, I didn't actually, like, what should the metric be? Maybe there shouldn't be one. It's based on speed. So if you hit 5 regular non-stacked fallacies in like 1.5 seconds, you get a combo. But if you string 20 non-stacked, non-super fallacies in a row, even if it takes you like 20 seconds, you'll still get that fallacy combo point. It's almost like an uninterrupted combo. So it could take longer as long as it's uninterrupted. So we don't necessarily have to have a decided number. But for super fallacies, since super fallacies are much more difficult because they're stacked fallacies, so like a single statement with 3 or more stacked fallacies, if you do 3 or more of those in a row, you'll also get a fallacy combo point. So there's only 2 ways to get that fallacy combo. Let's say maybe 6 in a row regular fallacies or 3 in a row super fallacies. Mr. One to One. I mean, we're trying to be accurate here. I mean, Dunning-Kruger champion's no joke. I mean, this is the Dunning-Kruger championship of the world. We're talking world championships here. We have to take it seriously. This isn't just some meaningless title. I mean, this is prestigious. Michael Sartain is the current reigning, defending, undisputed Dunning-Kruger champion. But Craig's coming for him hard. So we have to figure this out. Matari, does that make sense with the super fallacy combo? Because if we have a fallacy combo category, if you're just doing regular garden variety fallacy stream, you have to hit like at least, let's say, 6 to 8. But for super fallacies, since they're so much more, they're stacked, they're multiple fallacies in single statements, if you get maybe 3 in a row, you'll get that fallacy combo bonus. Because I don't think even Craig didn't get 3 in a row super fallacies. Okay, Matari's on board. Everybody's all set. So let's continue. Now, this is a rough draft, so we can make adjustments. But 3 in a row kicks in the combo bonus. 10 jumps it to super status. Wait. Are you talking about fallacy super combos? so regular fallacy combos are, let's say, 5 in a row and up, and you want to add another category for fallacy super combos where if you hit 10 or more in a row? I'm not, what do you mean, Heracles? Oh, are you saying that 10 in a row regular fallacies, You'll get the fallacy combo, and you also get credit for a super fallacy if you hit 10 in a row. I'm not sure about that because in the equivalent to the boxing kickboxing analogy, if you string together well, actually it could make sense because if you get hit with 10 in a row low power shots or 20 in a row low power shots, it might knock you out. Dave, we need Dave's opinion on this. Dave, what do you think? Mr. Wonder, only Craig will ever. Actually, do not underestimate Sartain. If we redo Sartain's podcast, I think he could hit these as well. Do not sleep on Sartain. Matari, are you on board with 10 plus also getting a super fallacy? I mean, it could make sense, but for the sake of simplicity, should we not do that? Dave Scott, what do you think? I know you got a storm going through your area, so your internet might be spotty. Yeah, Sartain would say hold my beer, but I mean, both of these guys are no slouches when it comes to Dunning-Kruger championships. They're both in the running. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they unseat each other going back and forth. I wouldn't sleep on Destiny either. I mean, Zerka absolutely decimated him. Bryant. I think Bryant will never be the cream of the crop because he doesn't stack the fallacies as often as all these other guys. Like he timidly goes mostly one fallacy at a time. And his verbal diarrhea is not good enough. His verbal diarrhea game just can't compare to Craig and Sartain. He's like he'll always be a gatekeeper. Maybe a step above journeyman in the Dunning-Kruger championships, but I don't think he'll ever touch gold. Could be wrong, though. Sphinx, it shouldn't be a topic of discussion for someone to string 10 in a row. That's a good point, because I don't think Craig got 10. I think he only hit 8. I don't want to replay it, because it's going to jump back like 3 minutes, but... Alright, so I guess we can revisit that, Heracles, on whether or not 10 in a row also gets you a super fallacy point. I'm actually leaning to no because I want it mostly to represent like big power shots, whereas fallacy combos could be those power shots in a row. Like for example, 3. Oh yeah, I'm aware of Leo. Leo's tough. He probably could give these guys a run for their money as well. You're probably right, Matari.
No, it doesn't, because again, notice how there's not a single reference. Dependent, independent variables, controls, manipulating variables. Notice how there's none of that, because that's what proves scientific legitimacy. And he avoids that like the plague, because he either doesn't know about it, or he's just some kind of actor showing. Because he knows if he has to go to those variables and controls, then everything completely falls apart, and he has absolutely nothing to stand on. Not that this is much anyway. I mean, this really isn't much either. This is probably the worst debate I've ever seen. Craig's performance here is the worst I have ever seen in any debate. I don't know if he's going to break Sartain's record in terms of quantity, but in terms of dumbest arguments, I mean, he's there. He's there. And I do have a question for all the MindShock listeners. Should we make an adjustment here? When there are fallacies that are so astounding, when the level of stupidity is just historic.
I mean, I actually forgot I said that. I thought I only came up with these ideas after the end of this one, but apparently in the middle of it, I was already seeing it at the depths. Like Craig had the floor drop out on Dunning-Kruger so many times. I'm already kind of thinking we need to redo the entire system just because of Craig.
Like with Craig here.
What is energy, Craig?
Math work done. Well, mathematically, what do you want it to mean? What do you want it to mean? What do you want it to mean? What do you want it to mean?
Should we have a fallacy, like a super fallacy? Like when he says energy, well, what do you want it to be? When he gives those kinds of OC answers, should that count as like 100 fallacies? Because if it's so astoundingly dumb.
What is energy? Craig?
Math work done. Well, mathematically, what do you want it to mean? What do you want it to mean? What do you want it to mean? What do you want it to mean?
Should it count as 100 fallacies? I think it should. I think we should have super fallacies added to the list. Even if I don't know how to quantify them. Should they be 50? Should they count as 50, 100, 500? I mean, I don't know. Like that level of goofery, I mean, that was interesting. I was not, even from a mentally disabled goof like Craig, I was not expecting that level of goofery.
What do you want it to mean?
So I don't know. I mean, I'll let the MindShock listeners decide that. And for follow-up podcasts, for follow-up analyses, we'll see if there should be like a super fallacy, because that was definitely one of them.
So you're admitting that the framework of Felicia warping the light to go towards the sun is just as valid as space-time, right?
I've just changed the name of space-time. All of the maths, everything about Felicia is exactly the same as Einstein described space-time. It's exactly the same.
Let me ask.
Hold on. The only thing I've done, the one single thing I've done, is I've changed the name space-time to Felicia.
That's another fallacy combo right there. Wow, impressive stream. That was like another 8 or 9 fallacies. And he actually, Caleb would have actually prevented him from getting that fallacy combo, but he basically just ramped it up and just continued filibustering to make sure he got his fallacy combo bonus.
I don't know. It looks like he's being genuine here. It really does look like that he's just this mentally disabled. He can't comprehend that. Again, unless he's the best actor ever. I mean, he just really seems like he's being genuine. Because clearly, again, doesn't understand the scientific method, doesn't understand what science is or variables, controls, any of this stuff. He does not even on a basic preschool kindergarten level. But he thinks he is. I mean, look the
Matari. Yeah, well, that's why I postulated the theory. He might have a fetish for humiliating himself, because that's the only thing I could think of where he just keeps doing these streams where he's having these mental health meltdowns, actively proving he's not even on like a preschool English level. So if he doesn't have, well, even if he does have a mental disability, he might also have just this fetish for humiliating himself.
The confidence in his voice. I mean, can you truly fake that level of stupid? I mean, again, if he's just this phenomenal actor, I mean, maybe he can. But I'm gonna appeal to incredulity. Like, it's hard to believe he's this good of an actor. He's just fundamentally not comprehending that changing the name is not the subject of what we're talking about here.
Now, change anything apart from the name. All of the maths is exactly the same.
So if it's interchangeable, all the things that you said about the observations does not substantiate that a fourth dimensional fabric of space-time exists and warps light. Massless light, where gravitation's only supposed to act on mass. So you've substantiated nothing. I asked for evidence of space-time warping, a fourth dimensional fabric, and you said that it's completely interchangeable, whether you call it unicorns or whatever you call it. So would you admit you have no evidence that space-time is a physical thing?
I mean, is he laughing at himself there? I mean, I don't know. Like, it's rough. If he wasn't laughing, I think I might have to take actor completely off the table. Or, actually, no, there's probably another explanation here. Does he have some kind of mental condition, a mental disability, where it's kind of like, you know, people with, I forgot the name of the disease. There's some disease, like some kind of nervous system disease where there's like jolts, like it feels like you're being electrocuted intermittently, but not always. Is that like, is he almost a complete vegetable and there are just these glimmers of cognitive function?
Like, I was being serious here. I was seriously trying to figure out what Craig's deal is. Like, I wasn't saying that for comedic purposes, because it does seem like he has glimmers of cognitive function occasionally.
And they're kind of intermittent. Is that what's going on here? Where, like, he can comprehend his complete and utter decimation, which is what those little laughs were about, But then when it comes time to really think about it, just those electric signals just aren't there in the brain. That might be my new theory when it comes to Craig. Because, I mean, Caleb has indulged him every step of the way, and he's still not grasping it. I mean, Caleb has lowered this to literally preschool levels. And Craig still thinks it's just about switching labels.
That warps in the presence of mass, and it could be anything.
Absolutely not. It's the Eddington experiment in 1919 and experiments similar to it demonstrate exactly what we have asked, expect.
Wrong again, because again, they didn't. The predictions were all wrong by astronomical numbers, according to follow-up.
We have another dilemma here. Because obviously, with the re-established baseline, repeating the same thing is not going to get you a super fallacy. But what if you repeat it 50 times, 100? Even with the re-established baseline, at a certain point, when you repeat your illiteracy, evidence of your illiteracy and incomprehension so many times, like, how many times does he have to repeat the same nonsense to get another super fallacy or dinger? What does everybody think about that? Like, Heracles, the Heracles rule. So I wouldn't say he's there yet, but if he repeats this, like, how many more times does he have to repeat the same fallacy stack here with the readjusted baseline in order to get another super fallacy? Well, Mr. One-to-One, someone that actually feels the need to post video evidence of tying their shoes, I mean, I don't know, like, what else can you really say about Craig? But Heracles, what do you think? How many times would he have to repeat this to get another super fallacy? Just this constant evidence of incomprehension. Because in order to deviate from the baseline, like, you'd have to add way more emphasis. Sphinx Bear. I mean, yes, but I want to know what Heracles thinks about this, because Heracles brought us the Heracles rule. So without Heracles, we wouldn't even be considering baselines. Because if you're that dumb and all you can do is repeat. Hey, Cassidy. Welcome. Heracles, 5 different attempts. Because he's on... Is this the 5th, actually? I don't know. It's the 3rd or 4th for sure. He's been circling the drain with this for a while. And how would we keep track of that? Because it's almost... There's slightly different context. I mean, I wouldn't give it to him yet. I guess if he goes another 1 or 2 times like this, we'll have to do it. We might have to have Heracles Rule 1 and Heracles Rule 2. Because the context with the attempts, 5 without adjusting. So 5 in a row. Okay. So he's only on the 2nd or 3rd one now. But that seems pretty reasonable, I guess. Or is it 5 for Craig, 3 for everybody else, based on baseline? Because even 3 in a row without changing the argument, it's kind of pathetic. Mr. One-to-One, yeah. I mean, it's wild. Wild. Because argument by repetition is a fallacy in and of itself. I don't usually talk about it because people usually don't spiral like Craig is here. Like, he just keeps going fallacy by repetition. I mean, all stacked on these false premises, post hoc circular reasoning fallacies. I mean, this is insane. I mean, I've never seen a debate as fallacious as this. I mean, this guy, I mean, he puts Sartain to shame in level of stupidity, which is why we are reevaluating the entire system, because even Sartain didn't spiral like this. Yes, Cassidy. His baseline's constantly. We have to adjust it almost every sentence, actually. Okay, so Heracles. So is the baseline in effect for the second Heracles rule as well? So is it 5 attempts for people like Craig, like bottom of the barrel goofs? Or should it be 3 for everybody else? I'm thinking it should be 3 for everybody else because 2 you can kind of be like, okay, maybe they don't get it. But if they're going 3 repeated circular arguments of fallacies, that should automatically qualify for a super fallacy. Mr. One to One. I really, it never even occurred to me. Like, even if somebody as disabled as Craig, I never actually thought he would post the video. Like, whether he could or he couldn't do it. Heracles, 3 is fair, 2 is for champs. Oh, now we're getting crazy. So, the reigning defending champion. Okay, that might be a little too complicated. So, let's go 3 as a rule of thumb. But but according to Craig's baseline, he'd have to do it 5 times. Okay, that's fair enough. So he'd have to go 1 or 2 more times before we give it to him.
Tests and observations, not scientific experiments, obviously. And he's like a child. Like, when he doesn't get what he wants, he kind of cries, but he doesn't have the mental capacity to cry in a different way. So he can only regurgitate, Eddington, 1919, Eddington, without even understanding the Eddington's alleged experiment and why it's not an experiment and why the predictions didn't match. Which is why they had to throw out so many observations. And even the observations that they left had over 400% error rates versus subsequent tests. And that's being generous, because it could be far more. But those are the admitted numbers that we're going to go with, according to Harvard.
Not only that, we can move to modern times and look at the LIGO experiments, which also match 100.
Oh, wow, he went to LIGO. Okay, hold on. What are we going to do here? Because he's claiming they match. I think he's going to say 100%. He said 100. I'm guessing he was going to say percent after that. So, I mean, wow. I mean, that's crazy. Because obviously that's a false premise. Now, is that false premise, I believe, has deviated from the baseline enough for a super fallacy because we're talking about fake injection signals. Like, if they were, like, for example, for Eddington, I don't know if they actually fudged the results. I haven't seen evidence of that. Here, there's admitted injection. So this is a big difference between Sphinx Fair. Come on, man. I'm trying to focus here. Man. What are you doing? Not to mention, over time, things happen. Okay, hold on. So there's a difference between inaccuracies and outright fraud of blind injections. Heracles, is that enough of a deviation for you to hit super fallacy? Or is it a dinger? Because, I mean, it might... Is pure ignorance maybe shouldn't be a dinger? I don't know, because obviously he doesn't know about the blind injections. So is that just a super fallacy because it's just a false premise on steroids? Oh, you want to go super dinger? You want to go super dinger, Heracles? Maybe. I'm not opposed. So should super dingers be their own category? Because we might lose track. Because so far, Craig only has 1 super dinger. That was a super fallacy and a dinger simultaneously. Is everybody following here? It's just getting too complicated. A super dinger counts as both a super fallacy and a dinger. Now, bringing up LIGO, I'm not sure it should be a dinger. I think a dinger would require more than ignorance. So Heracles votes yes on the super dinger. What does everybody else think? I think it should just be a super fallacy because that was a false premise on steroids. Well, hold on a second. Not only was that that was a double false premise again. Because even if it did match 100% predictions, that's still not the scientific method. So that's a double false premise. So that would qualify for super fallacy in either way. Now, super dingers are already a thing. Did you not, were you not here for that? Oh yeah, you're right, Heracles. Yeah, yeah, not just it matched, but he added the 100. Yeah, you're right. You're right, Heracles. Adding the 100% and with the conviction, because he didn't say that with like a neutral tone. So I think, yeah, we might have to give him the, yeah, okay. I see your point. I see your point. So that'll be a super dinger. Can you imagine if somebody hits a fallacy combo that finishes with a super dinger? Or there's a super dingo in a super dinger in the middle of a fallacy combo? Should that make everything count double if they hit that? Heracles, what do you think? There is no super dinger counter because the super dinger adds one fallacy and one dinger simultaneously. So since he just hit a super dinger, his super fallacies go to 13 and his dingers go to 12. Heracles, is Craig good enough to to do a fallacy combo incorporating a super dinger? Hold on. So Heracles, are you saying? Wait, hold on, Heracles. Are you saying if somebody can hit a fallacy combo that includes a super dinger, it should add plus 50 regular fallacies to their count? Is that what you're saying? Should there be super zingers? Oh man.
Not surprising. I don't know if somebody in his earpiece just told him to mention LIGO. So let's do it. Let's do the LIGO excerpt. And I covered this on another podcast as well. I will throw that in here. So now we're going to go to the goofs that claim that LIGO discovered gravitational waves that somehow prove relativity. Let's address this common argument by the scientism cultists. So telling the analysts. So those that think and hallucinate and strawman that all the scientists would have to be in on it, it was all fake.
I'm just skipping through this because this isn't helping us develop our system.
Obviously not. They self-admit or retardation. Or was it the alleged gravity waves and these repeated injected data experiments and tests where they admit to the fraud of injecting the data without even telling the analysts who get this data, then they're all happy? I mean, this is almost emotional abuse here. I mean, you're tricking people into thinking that they've discovered these great proofs of physics and science and made these leaps in human knowledge when you're just faking them out. I mean, that's low, but typical for the scientism cult. So LIGO was admittedly injecting data without telling the so-called scientists. So LIGO clearly not providing evidence of gravitational waves. And of course, we do have other very, very intelligent individuals demonstrating what could easily explain gravitational waves without hallucinating that injected data is legitimate. And let's see if Kayla brings up the injected data here.
the predictions of the warping of space-time. Or
How
sorry,
much is the
I
fringe
like-
shift?
Ja.
How much is the fringe shift? How much is the fringe shift at LIGO?
Of what? Of the fringe shift in LIGO within the
Of the
margin of error.
lasers?
Yeah.
How much
within
is
the
it?
Within the
No,
margin
no,
of error.
that's not an answer.
Okay, hold on. Within the margin of error, without stating what the margin of error is or how the margin of error was determined. I mean, I don't know. I mean, do we need a hallucination category? Like, this is weird. Within the margin of error, yeah, based on his baseline. Now, when you have such an unsupported statement of that level, like it's magic. Whatever the margin of error is, it's magically within it, no matter what, while not backing that up with any evidence. What do you think about that, Heracles? It's not necessarily a false premise, because if he doesn't know what the margin of error is, it could be within the margin of error, but we don't know that. So, I mean, yeah, Mr. One, it was what they said it would be, basically, yeah. It's par for the course for Craig, but just that level of goofery, is that enough to elevate to super fallacy status? Because not only is that, so that would be a fallacy of vagueness, a circular reasoning fallacy, presupposing that they can't make any mistakes on the margin of error. I mean, he's also got false cause in there, because even if it was within the margin of error, that doesn't mean what was measured, what caused what they measured within the margin of error was what they thought it was, gravitational waves. So that's a hat trick no matter what. What's up, Riz? You missed a lot of laughs so far. And post hoc. Yeah, that's true, Cassidy. So that's a quadruple fallacy. So that's a super fallacy automatically, because that's more than 3. So Craig is up to 14 super fallacies. Riz, you missed a new category we had to start just for Craig. Fallacy combos. So if you hit at least, let's say, 5 to 8 regular fallacies in rapid succession. Well, yeah, if it was just one fallacy, like for example, saying it was within the margin, like if Craig knew what the scientific method was, saying it was within the margin for error, I mean, that would, well, no, because if he did know what the scientific method was and he wasn't claiming it proved what he's saying it proved, he's only claiming that the quantifiable result came in was within the, I mean, that's, well, still, because it was injected data. So, how is injected data within the margin for error? So, it would be a super fallacy regardless of any baseline. Okay. Hold on a second. Yeah, Riz, he got a combo, a fallacy combo. So it depends on how quick you make them. So if, let's say, you hit 5 fallacies in a row, regular non-stacked super fallacies, you'd get a fallacy combo if you did it in 2 or 3 seconds. If you talk really slow, but you hit 20 fallacies in a row uninterrupted, even if it takes you a minute, that would also be a fallacy combo. And in order to get fallacy combo points for super fallacies, if you string 3 super fallacies or more in a row, you also get a fallacy combo bonus point. And then, Riz, you also missed super dingers. Craig actually, I think we talked about him yesterday, but Craig actually hit 2 so far. He had 2 super dingers, so that's a simultaneous super fallacy and dinger at the same time. Well, I'm still holding back on doing the health bars, but I mean, if it comes to it, maybe we'll have to do it.
Can you give me like a size? Like, can you give me a measurement of how much the laser changes?
And notice how Craig can never, ever provide any sources. I mean, even fake sources. He doesn't even have fake sources. He's got nothing. He's got absolutely nothing here other than his vegetative rambling.
The injected data was within the margin of error. I just realized how funny that is. The fake data was within the margin of error for measuring real data. Oh man. I just realized how funny that is. The injected data was within the margin for error. I have to say, out of all Craig's one-liners, out of all his gems, I think my favorite are "What do you want it to be" for energy, and "Over time things happen." I mean, just that level of genius, just those revolutionary concepts of this intellectual powerhouse known as Craig. I mean, they got to put statues up at this guy at all these Ivy League universities. I mean, over time things happen. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, just think about how astute and aware of the universe like you would have to be to figure that out. That over time things happen.
How much?
I'm not sure the exact amount off by hand, but I remember it's within the margin of error of the machine.
So he doesn't even remember anything. Like, what is he doing here?
What would you say you do here?
Like, seriously, what is he doing in a flat earth debate? I mean, this guy's bringing wet sponges to tank fights. What is going on here? I mean, this is why I have my theory that the flat earth psyop, again, it doesn't mean flat earth is true or untrue. The psyop is to defend the globe earth intentionally so poorly. So here's my next question. Was he a recruited shill because he has a mental disability, not because he's actually a good actor? So they wanted to get real mentally disabled people for these so-called public debates, whatever, this social media presence. They intentionally went after the mentally disabled. So that way it would guarantee that they would put on these showings that are so poor as to recruit greater amounts of flat earthers to destabilize society, faith in institutions, etc. Not that anybody should have those, but obviously that would be destabilizing. So I mean, I have to congratulate Craig here. I have a new theory thanks to him. Are they intentionally recruiting mentally disabled borderline vegetables? Because they can't risk that actors might not be good enough. That's my new theory. So thanks, Craig. We might be getting closer to the truth thanks to Craig here.
So you don't know the amount that the fringe shift happens, but you just believe that it.
No, again, I don't believe anything. I've looked this up and researched this before.
Then why don't
I don't. So he doesn't know what it means to believe something. So that's 4 fallacies in 1.5 seconds. What do you think, Heracles? Should he get a fallacy combo for that? Or is that a super fallacy? I don't believe anything. I looked it up and researched it. So he looked it up and researched it. Is he saying he doesn't believe what he looked up and researched? I mean, that might be a super dinger. What does everybody think? I mean, I don't think I could let that one slide. Even with Craig's metrics of his baseline. I mean, saying he doesn't believe anything, I mean, not only is that a flat out lie, but, I mean, is that a super dinger combo? Is that our first super dinger combo? Because he did hit those 4 fallacies in literally 1.5 seconds. That was about 1.5 seconds he hit 4 fallacies. Blinkers. Is that our first super dinger fallacy combo? What does everybody think? I don't believe anything. I looked it up and researched it. Just a dinger? Or are we going to say that's a super dinger fallacy? Because he's lying about what he believes, unless he doesn't even know what the word believe means. Heracles, what do you think? I think that's the first instance of a possible super dinger combo. Matari says combo. Super dinger combo or just regular combo? Yeah, multiply. Whoa, Cassidy, if we had multipliers, I mean, this is going to be insane. Oh, man. Hold on, hold on. Well, Heracles, what do you think? Heracles said combo, but regular combo or super dinger combo? Or theoretically, it could just be a regular dinger combo as well. Like, because he got the dinger in the combo. So he doesn't have to hit a super fallacy for it. Actually, I think I'd be okay with that. Just a regular dinger combo instead of a super dinger combo. Because a super dinger combo, he would get a super fallacy, a dinger, and a fallacy combo point. So it's so close, but it's Craig regular. Well, there's 3 different combos you can hit. You can hit super dinger combo, and you could hit dinger combo. And I guess you could also hit super fallacy combo is already a thing because if you get 3 in a row. So Heracles agrees to regular dinger combo, not super dinger combo. Okay, I think I guess yeah, because of his baseline. Because of his baseline, he doesn't get the super dinger. Sphinx Bear agrees. Regular dinger combo. All right. Oh man, and this is historic. This is the first dinger combo in MINDSHOCK analysis history. These are gonna take forever. On all of the new analysis, this is the format we're gonna use if we completely decide on it at the end of this. If we ever get to the end of this.
Don't you know?
No, again,
So he looked it up and he believed what he read. He believed the headlines. Gravitational waves discovered, and he actually didn't research it because otherwise he would know about the injected data. And furthermore, he's saying it's within the margin of error. How does he know the margin of error is accurate? Like seriously, how does this goof or any other scientism cultist? They just believe the margin of error is what they were told it was by the scientism priests and lab coats? How do we truly know what the margin of error is? With this fallible human technology and fallible human interpretation of technology. And injected data. Admitted injected data. I mean, here's the thing, too. Like, if they're willing to admit that the data was injected, I mean, just the level of goofery of coincidence theorists, I mean, just think about it for a second. If they're willing to openly admit that they injected.
That's actually a good point, Matari. There should be zinger combos. Because if there are fallacy combos. But what about. Yeah, so. Yeah, there should be zinger combos. I don't know if anybody ever really hit those. Jeranism, or actually, you know what? Witsit might have hit a couple. Are we going to add zinger combos as well?
The data and that they really weren't detected. What are they not admitting? I mean, goofs like Craig, they don't have the mental capacity to even consider that.
Because I don't have an eidetic memory. I don't remember every single thing I ever look at ever.
Okay, hold on. So for anybody else, this would definitely be a super fallacy because that it's such an appeal to extremes. So either because he can't because Caleb asked him what the margin, he couldn't remember margin of error, so he extrapolates that to only people with perfect memories who can remember everything in their entire life can remember the margin of error for one particular thing. Something that he brought up himself. Caleb's not the one who brought up LIGO. So if Craig's the one that brought up LIGO, shouldn't Craig know what the margin? Because he's attempting to say that this proves his point about gravitational waves and their existence. But if he doesn't even know the margin of error, like he doesn't even know what he's talking about. So for anybody else, it would clearly be a super fallacy that appealed to extremes. Now, for Craig, is it not a super fallacy? Let's defer to Heracles for the Heracles rule. I mean, the baseline's been adjusted so many times. I mean, you got to factor in the inflection, too. He didn't say that plainly. He kind of drew it out. Just because I don't have an eidetic memory and I don't remember everything about everything. You don't think it's enough of a deviation? Some not being able to defend your own statement must mean you have to have a perfect memory about everything, according to Craig. What does everybody think? Is that enough of a deviation from Craig's baseline to qualify for super fallacy? It's iffy. It's iffy because I don't know. Heracles, I know it sounds ridiculous, but I mean, yes, that's why we're discussing this. That's why it's iffy. For anybody else, it wouldn't be iffy. Yes, Riz, I mentioned that. I'm gonna do a pre-recorded, like 30-second video explaining all the rules. Kind of like, I think they used to do it in most sports, but I mean, I don't really watch sports. I don't know if they still do this. Like at the beginning of an NBA game, do they explain like the time periods, 2-point shots versus 3-point shots, free throws? They used to. I think in the UFC they still do. Like you can win by submission or knockout and decision, and the decisions are based on a 10-point must system with all these factors. I think they still do that in the UFC. Sphinx Bear says it's a hard one. It is a hard one. For anybody else, this is a clear super fallacy. Hallucinating that you have to have an eidetic memory simply to back up a basic statement of a point you brought up yourself. I mean, come on, Heracles, come on. If Caleb had been the one to bring up LIGO, then this would not necessarily be a super fallacy for Craig. For anybody else, it would still be because it's silly. But Craig's the one that brought up LIGO. Riz, what do you mean? Oh, that LIGO. Well, genetic would be that LIGO is correct because they're LIGO. They're specifically discussing what the margin of error is. Craig is saying he doesn't remember. The problem with that, Mr. One-to-One, is that there are literally dozens and dozens and dozens of fallacies. I did probably close to an hour, if not more, before the debate between so-called Professor Dave and Flat Earth Dave, where I went over the common ones, but there's just so many. Cassidy, you're talking about regular sports? Because I saw the UFC do that maybe a few months ago, as recent as a few months ago. I think the UFC does that with the rules. Other sports that I used to watch, maybe in the 90s, early 2000s, they did that, but I don't know if they still do that. But I think the UFC still does that. And I think boxing still does that, as of even a year ago. Okay, so we're undecided on whether or not it's a super fallacy for Craig to think you need an eidetic memory to know the margin of error for the point that he brought up himself, not Caleb, because Caleb's not the one that brought up LIGO. Yeah, Cassidy. Okay, yeah, because I know years and years ago they did, but I guess UFC is a newer sport. Well, boxing's not new, and I think they still do that in boxing. Yeah, I guess Mr. One to One, I can probably put up just like a basic one. Yeah, that's a good idea. In the pre-recorded intro with all the rules for counting super fallacies and dingers and fallacy combos. I could also do that just so people can get a general idea. Captain thinks it's a super fallacy for thinking you need an eidetic memory just to defend a basic point that you yourself brought up. Yeah, no problem, Sphinx Bear. I mean, yeah, logic is important. It could still qualify within the three fallacy rule. Eidetic memory. I mean, that would be, I guess it could qualify as a red herring, non sequitur, possibly an appeal to humor. I'm not sure though, because was he trying to be funny there? I'm not sure. I couldn't tell that that was definitively a joke. Cassidy, I think they only mentioned the rules at the beginning of the entire show. And then if there's a championship fight or a 5-round main event, then they would mention that's the difference with rounds. Not sure if they also mention all of that at the beginning. They might, but not all events would have championship rounds or more rounds. But yes. I'm not sure if that qualifies for the hat trick fallacy because saying you need an eidetic memory to back up your own statement, to just remember one thing of your own point that you're trying to prove. Red herring, non sequitur, maybe appeal to humor. I mean, I guess you can call it, I guess we could also say it's a diversion fallacy, but I'm not 100% sure because a diversion fallacy built into the fallacy, like for example, if I don't think Craig has the mental capacity to commit a diversion fallacy, because for example, if he wants to lure Caleb into talking about eidetic memories, then that would have been a diversion fallacy because he brought up eidetic memories, even though it has nothing to do with anything. But that's only if he wanted Caleb to start discussing eidetic memories, uh, eidetic, yeah, memories instead of LIGO, because it seems like he still wants to stay on LIGO and pretend that everything was within the margin of error. If he wanted to get Caleb to switch the subject to eidetic memories instead of LIGO and gravitational waves, that would be a diversion fallacy. So I'm not sure that's a hat trick fallacy, Heracles. So really what this comes down to is, see, according to Craig's baseline, I would say if Caleb was the one who brought up LIGO and Craig couldn't remember what the margin of error is, that wouldn't be a super fallacy. But since Craig's the one that brought up LIGO, that might elevate it to enough of a deviation from the baseline to qualify as a super fallacy. I'm going to give him a super fallacy. Anybody have a problem with that? Yeah, Captain, it didn't really sound like a joke. Like Felicia was obviously an appeal to humor. Mr. One to One, I use the diversion trick in everyday life. I mean, a lot of people do, but you'd have to have the mental capacity to do it. Because it seems like Craig thought that that was a good defense by simply saying that he doesn't have an eidetic memory. That's why he can't remember us just this one detail about a point that he brought up himself. Like he would have to have an eidetic memory in order to back up any of his own points. Like there's no other. Actually, whoa. Heracles, it is actually. I wouldn't say it was shifting the burden of proof. It's a false dichotomy. So you're right. It does hit the hat trick because we have red herring, non sequitur, and false dichotomy. Because he's insinuating either you have an eidetic memory and you can back up all points, or if you don't have an eidetic memory, you're not going to be able to remember anything and back up any of your own points. So I guess it is that hat trick fallacy under the false dichotomy. All right, finally got that sorted. So now we don't even have to determine whether it was deviating enough from the baseline because it automatically qualified for super fallacy under the hat trick fallacy.
If you're going to provide it as evidence, you should probably remember it. Don't you agree?
I mean, it's like talking to a preschooler. Like, he knew he was going on a flat Earth debate. So obviously he knew he could bring up Eddington, right? So he knew he could bring up LIGO too, otherwise why pull that out? I mean, he's only really referenced, what, 2 things, 3 things? Like Foucault's pendulum, Coriolis, Eddington, and LIGO. So there's like 4 things. I mean, you can fit that like on a tiny little notepad.
What would you say you do here?
Like, I mean, he could easily have put the source there. I mean, literally, I mean, even some of these, the dumbest debaters on any subject, even they have some kind of sources, but he's got nothing. He had to look up the definition of energy. I mean, this is the most embarrassing, pathetic showing I have ever seen of anybody on any subject in any debate at any grade level. I mean, you could probably go to an elementary school and find a better debate than this because Craig, I mean, this really is like dealing with a borderline vegetable. I don't know how Caleb is doing this. I really don't. I mean, this guy needs a medal.
Well, no, because I've got the internet and I can just look it up and show and get that information for you. Having an eidetic memory and remembering every little detail of everything is irrelevant.
Now look.
Wow. Who said it was relevant? You don't need an eidetic memory because nobody's talking about remembering every little detail of everything. Just one simple point of something he brought up himself. He says he has the internet and he can look it up, yet instead of looking it up, he just did another combo fallacy. Was that a combo fallacy? I mean, he just did 4 in a row. I wouldn't elevate it to super fallacy or dinger just because of the readjusted baseline that we just had to readjust again. But I would put that as a fallacy combo. Anybody else think that's a combo? I mean, he just did 4 in a row in like a second and a half.
Like now he's spamming appeal to extremes logical fallacy. So he's and red herring logical fallacies. Nobody's saying you have an eidetic memory would mean you would literally remember every single thing you ever read ever. But having 4 sources for 4 points obviously doesn't require an eidetic memory. I mean, we're talking about he only brought up like 4 things. It's not like he brought up 100 things and he can't remember one of them. I mean, just the level of goofery on display here.
To a conversation like this, just because you can spout off a bunch of stuff proves nothing.
Exactly, Craig. Exactly. Just because you can spout off a bunch of stuff about Eddington, alleged stuff, which is all completely wrong, obviously, and spout off a bunch of alleged stuff about what Foucault's pendulum allegedly proves because he doesn't understand how the scientific method works. Yes. So Craig is not a 100% brain dead vegetable. We have established that. His subconscious works at least a little bit.
What can be presented is the important thing, not memorizing a list of things.
I'll give you your answer. It was the width of a proton.
So the guy who didn't bring it up could remember it, or at least have the wherewithal to have it on a screen or a piece of paper next to his desk, because he's coming prepared for a debate that's going to include these subjects. Again, Craig's baseline, so I'm not going to hit him for anything on that unless somebody thinks that he should be hit. But I mean, the baseline's been readjusted so many times that according to the current one, I'm not gonna hit him for any super fallacies or dingers there, unless people in the chat thinks he deserves it. You can make your case.
And notice how Caleb is prepared. So he either memorized it or he has it either on his screen or whatever. He's more prepared for the arguments that Craig is making. So he's prepared for his own arguments and Craig's arguments more than Craig is. Although, is that really a feat when you're dealing with a mentally disabled guy?
What would you say you do here?
Which was within the margin of error of the machine.
So how do we know that that laser moved because of the gravity?
Wait, how does he know it was within the margin of error if he doesn't know what the margin of error is? And again, no evidence for how that's determined in any way. But again, based on his baseline, I guess we're not going to give him a super fallacy or dinger there, because I guess he'd have to repeat it a couple more times, according to Heracles' Rule 2.
Gravitational waves affecting it from black holes and not something like magnetism. How do we isolate gravity in that apparatus? How do we do that, Greg?
Again, we make a prediction. This is what we're doing.
Whoa. Okay, call me crazy. I think I'm going to have to go super dinger on that. You isolate gravity by making a prediction. Oh, man. You can't make this stuff up, even with Craig's baseline. Look at Caleb's face. He's finally getting a little fed up with this goofery. Okay, hold on. You isolate by making predictions. So, if you need to isolate a prisoner from Gen Pop to the hole, you're going to make a prediction. You're going to simply predict. And then the prisoner is going to end up in the hole, isolated from Gen Pop. All you have to do to isolate the prisoner is make a prediction. Oh, man. Okay, I'm voting super dinger here. Heracles, even considering his baseline, I believe that's still a super dinger. Heracles is getting a headache. I think we're almost done, actually. I don't think we have that much more here. I think we can finish this up within another maybe 20 minutes. So hang in there. I think we're almost done. Because if we don't finish in like 20 minutes, we'll have to part for it. So you're saying super dinger, yes? What does everybody else think? Even considering Craig's, like, that would still make me spit my drink out, even for Craig. Like, how do you isolate? You make a prediction. Somehow, predictions isolate magically. Oh, man, this is rough.
Here with
Man, look at Caleb's face. Wait, making a prediction is not isolating gravity or isolating a variable.
Wait, hold on a second. It wasn't just isolating anything. You isolate gravity by predicting. So you don't need any kind of vacuum chambers or anything. You just have to predict.
I don't know if I could do this. I'm sorry, listeners. I don't know how much longer I could last here.
predicting that if something happens, then we will be able to detect that this thing has happened.
if something happens, magically you're able to detect it. Wow. Wow. So nothing ever happens without the ability to detect it. I think that's another super dinger. I mean, that's bad. I mean, I know we have to think about the Heracles rule because we don't really know Craig's true baseline. We could only assume. We can only guess. But if something happens, so Heracles is laughing again. So he votes super dinger because that would probably make me spit my drink out back to back because anything that happens automatically is able to be detected. So let's say someone predicted the existence, and supposedly this did happen, of let's say atoms or subatomic particles before the technology existed to detect it. Or let's say demons. Let's say demons were supposed to be responsible for disease. So if someone is predicting that a demon is going to make someone sick or die, and that person gets sick and dies, so the prediction came true. According to Craig, the ability to detect the demon is built into the prediction happening. I mean, I can't, like, I'm totally with Heracles. Like, this, I go back and forth between headache and laughing because I just, how is something happening as predicted synonymous or guaranteeing the ability to detect what was predicted? Can anybody figure out what Craig is talking about here? This is a super dinger. This is a super fallacy and a dinger. No, Mr. One to One. Unfortunately, I think it's far lower than that. Heracles, he just hit two super dingers in a row. If he hits one more, he gets a super dinger fallacy combo. Not just a super fallacy combo. Hold on, we didn't talk about this. We never considered super dinger fallacy combo. What should happen if somebody hits a super dinger fallacy combo? We could say his, yeah. If Craig hits another super dinger right now with no interruption, he just got three super dingers in a row. This is actually the first time anybody even got two super dingers in a row. So he just went back to back super dingers. So if he gets one more, he's also getting a fallacy combo point. Should the fallacy combo point count double or even 10x bonus for hitting three super dingers in a row? If you combo three super dingers, do you get a multiplier? This might be, I'm not a fan of multipliers, but this might be the exception. I think a multiplier might be warranted if someone actually combos three super dingers in a row. Like he just went back to back super dingers, which is impressive enough. But if he hits another super dinger right here, what should happen? Fatality. Well, let's see if he is first, because if he isn't, then we don't have to spend time on it.
Okay, so it'd be just as valid for me to say.
Okay, he didn't because it was interrupted.
It'd be just as valid for me to say that because electromagnetism is a form, light is a spectrum on the electromagnetic, wavelength, right? It's essentially electromagnetic radiation, right? You would agree.
That's what light is, yes.
Okay, so how do we know it's not from the perturbation of the magnetic field that's coming from the Earth changing and moving the light? How do we, if we can't decipher that it's gravitational waves or magnetism or electrostatics or some other phenomena of the ether causing the fringe shift, you cannot ad hocly assume that it's gravitational waves from black holes. Do you see the problem here? If we can just make predictions and say, oh shit, well, actually, the gravitational waves do this amount of fringe shift. And I could say, okay, well, actually, the difference in the magnetic field relative to the perturbation source would be different, causing this exact same fringe shift. Either claims are equally as valid, is exactly what you're saying. So there's no way to prove that the fringe shifts that
I don't think Craig even knows what he's saying, let alone what Caleb is saying. Mr. One-to-One, if you get 3 super dingers in a row, you should get a free brain scan. Are we gonna take bets? Does anybody think Craig can actually hit 3 super dingers in a row? Oh man. Or a fallacy combo including a super fallacy.
happen at LIGO are caused by gravitational waves.
Wow. Should we have super zingers too? Because that was.
Oh, I came up with super zingers on this one. Okay. Well, wait. Caleb just comboed. How many zingers did Caleb just combo? Was it 2 or 3? Who was paying attention? He got at least 2. Was anybody paying attention? I don't want to scroll it back because it's going to jump a couple minutes. Did Caleb just get 3 zingers in a row, or was it only 2? Riz missed it. Did anybody not miss it? Was that 2 or 3 zingers for Caleb? Everybody missed it. We were all still laughing. Okay, I'll review this. I'm not on YouTube. I mean, I'm streaming it not through YouTube. Okay, so he was interrupted. Maybe. I'll go back and review it later then. All right, let's try to finish this up as quickly as possible.
It's a good one. Wow, that was actually very impressive by Caleb. I have to say, I'm pretty impressed here. Because he broke that down in simple terms while still addressing the critical factors, like without glossing over. So,
you know what's crazy though? If people on modern day debate or whatever, they start watching these, they're going to start setting up zinger combos on purpose to try to get higher scores in these debates.
We kept it simple, but addressed the main factors there, and he's just getting this fluoride stare from Craig. I mean, this is tough. But Caleb definitely deserves a medal. I mean, I don't know how anybody could handle Craig for longer than 2 minutes. I mean, unless they're trained. I mean, unless there's some kind of social workers with all this training and how to deal with mentally disabled people.
Right.
Oh, so you're talking about the actual fringe shifts of it detecting, not the the normal fringe shifts of it for within the margin of error. Okay, sorry, I was confused by what you meant, the way you phrased it. Yeah,
he was confused by first grade phrasing. Again, I mean, can you find a more wrong guy for this type of debate?
What would you say you do here?
so the actual detection of the gravitational waves comes from a prediction. When we see something happen, we predict something will happen, and then we test to see if that thing will happen. For you to say, oh, well, it's just as valid as saying it's the perturbations in the Earth's magnetic field, well, that would be something you would have to substantiate by measuring the perturbations of the magnetic field of Earth and seeing if they happen at the same time as the measurements of the gravitational waves from black holes colliding.
Wow. Just when you think this guy can't sink any lower. Wow. I mean,
again, if it was someone else, we could start hitting super fallacies and dingers. But for Craig, I'm hesitant to rack up his count there because it's the same fundamental misunderstanding as before. Like that didn't make me spit my drink out, even though that was complete goofery. I mean, it's pretty much false cause recycled due to not understanding the scientific method. So, Mr. One to One, I believe he was referring to the order. So, for example, something was predicted, then they built all this technology to see if it would measure what was predicted. At least he didn't say you can isolate something by predicting this time, because over time things happen.
Is there any point this guy hasn't missed so far? Because, okay, so let's say, obviously, gravity is not uniform. It's not a uniform 9.8 meters per second squared. But you can average it out, because in certain areas of the world, there's variations. But if you want to say on average from all the points. So what's the reason behind it? Is it because mass attracts mass? Or are they electric forces? So your predictions and measurements would be identical. And he completely missed that point. I mean, his just...
Riz, come on, you're killing me, man. He's like an end game boss, really. We have to navigate how to do this. Oh, man. I mean, he really is unique. He's just built different.
His redirection, deflection, and just copes due to not understanding the basics of the scientific method. Again, I'm sorry, I don't know how much I'm...
That might actually be a super fallacy. The problem is I think he kind of spread the statement out as opposed to a single statement. So, but it wasn't, I'm not going to put it for a fallacy combo because it was too slow. It wasn't rapid enough succession. Does everybody agree with that? Activision needs to recruit him. Imagine if debate is gonna be made into some kind of video game. I don't think they have debating video games. If they did, maybe more people would know how to debate.
How long I can handle this? I don't think I'm going to make this in one more part. We're going to have to go part 3 on this. Because this guy is, I mean, there's just no brain activity here.
How do you measure gravitational waves?
Well, LIGO's doing that.
How do you measure it? LIGO is doing it. Wow. Okay, now we have another decision to make. Is that a super fallacy or a dinger? How do you do it? LIGO is doing it. He didn't ask who was doing it. So Craig doesn't know the difference between who and how. That's pretty fundamental. I mean, 4-year-olds know the difference between who and how. So, debate hero. Okay, Heracles, what do you think? I know your brain is frying, so is mine. We're trying to finish this up. But not knowing the difference between who and how, is that a super dinger? I think that might be a super dinger. Because he's asking how it's done. Craig responds with, which is also a false premise, potentially. Because if they're not real, well, circular reasoning. Because we don't know if they are or they aren't measuring gravitational waves. Although the injection data is admitted, so you could argue for false premise in addition to circular reasoning, logical fallacy, and false cause. So he's got a fallacy stack going while also not knowing the difference between who and how. In my opinion, that's a super dinger. What does everybody else think? Heracles says dinger. I say super dinger because he hit the hat trick on the fallacy as well. And not knowing the difference between how and who is quite pathetic, even for someone like Craig. I'm arguing even with his baseline. Not knowing the difference between how and who, that's a super dinger in my opinion. What does everybody else think? Get some feedback here. Come on, you guys got to get quicker with the responses. We got to finish this up. We really got to try to finish this up. Heracles agrees. Okay. So now we have another issue though, because should there be an award for super dingers? Because this is even though I don't have it on the screen, I'm keeping track. This is Craig's. This is Craig's 6th super dinger. So should it have more weight to hit a super dinger versus super fallacies and dingers separate? What does everybody think? I promise this will be the last major system question I'm going to ask before we finish this up. Should super dingers be some kind of secret category? And once you hit, let's say, 10, it comes up. Yes, Captain, because Caleb asked him, how do you measure? And Craig responded, LIGO is measuring, which that's not answering Caleb's question. Oh, you already knew that. Super dinger. Yeah, I think so too. So now the question is, should super dingers weigh more than individual super fallacies and dingers on their own, even if the total count ends up the same? I think Dave Scott would say no because he wants to keep dingers separate from fallacies. Or should the amount of super dingers only be used in the event of a tie break situation? I think that might be the best. Super dinger, yeah. There's a little bit of lag here if you guys type that in right away from what I'm seeing, but well, in a situation where let's say they were not in the same debate, like let's say analyzing this debate versus the Sartain debate, if they both have the same number of fallacies, super fallacies, and dingers and combos, whoever had the most super dingers would win the Dunning Kruger championship. We should ask Batman. Okay, so Heracles, are you still here? Do you have an opinion on that? Heracles is not sure. Okay, well, let's continue.
How is it doing that? How's it doing it?
Notice how he just spent, Caleb just spent all this time asking how it's doing that. And
Yannick, yeah, I think that's why we're developing this new system, because it shouldn't be based on volume alone. Craig definitely had the more illiterate moments of just pure goofery, so that's why we're redoing the system.
notice how Caleb, again, this is why he's a mentally disabled goof. That's not an ad hom because we just went over the arguments why. Because if we did it without the arguments, if we just said, oh, Caleb's an idiot and wrong about everything because he's brain dead and he's mentally disabled, that's an ad hom because that's used instead of the argument. We're going over the actual argument, which is the methodology of the scientific method, identifying variables, having controls, etc. So the question is, how did LIGO do that? And his response is, oh, well, LIGO did that. I mean, again, I don't know. I don't know how much longer I could last here. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Measuring the space warping from the gravitational waves which are traveling out at the speed of light from the large collision of two masses.
Is 4 enough for a fallacy combo? I'm not sure. I'm on the fence on that one because he didn't. It took like 2 to 3 seconds for 4. If he had done the 4 fallacies in like 1.5 seconds, that would definitely be a combo. This was a little bit more slow and drawn out. I'm not sure that's enough for a fallacy combo.
Wow, talk about going over something going over somebody's head. He just keeps regurgitating the religious dogma.
They were somewhat quick, but there was only 4. If there were like 1 or 2 extra ones, I would have given it to him at that speed.
He's asking, how does it show that? And all Craig can offer, oh, it shows that because he memorized a religious scroll. And ignoring the injected data, because that's not even real data. So again, it's like, is it possible for Craig to be more wrong or dumber about literally everything he brings up? Because he's bringing up Eddington as if the predictions were valid. They weren't. They threw out all of the observations that didn't match the prediction, and over 400% error rates when further observations were done later. So none of the predictions matched there anyway. Now with LIGO, he's hallucinating and pretending the data was legitimate. So it wasn't even legitimate. It was injected data. But even if it was legitimate, it still doesn't prove what's causing that. And he just can't muster the basic mental capacity required to comprehend that.
How is it measuring the gravitational waves that are coming at the speed of light? How does a laser do that, Craig? How does it do it?
Those gravitational waves warp the actual that the light travels down the LIGO arms.
And you could see, like, he's sputtering and stuttering. He doesn't know how any of this is done. So all he can do is regurgitate what he took on blind faith while ignoring the fact that it was all injected data anyway. I mean, you could see it on his face. You could hear it in his vocal intonations. He's just trying to save face any way he can here. But obviously, I mean, he's so mentally disabled. He doesn't seem to have the awareness of how he's humiliating himself.
I mean, I know this is getting exhausting, but how is it measured? Because it's traveling down the LIGO arm? What? Like, let's try to dumb this down. Let's say you're in a rowboat and there was some waves that splashed into the boat. And you ask, well, how do you measure how much water is collected on the bottom of the rowboat? Craig's answer would be the water splashed into the boat. Like, is that a super dinger? I don't know. Like, I mean, think about it. He's asking how it's measured. And Craig's answer is that these theoretical waves travel down the LIGO arm. So if we're trying to measure, let's say, a substance, maybe it's not water, maybe it's an unknown substance at the bottom of a rowboat. And so if we ask, how do we measure the amount at the bottom of the rowboat? Craig's answer would be that the water splashed into the boat. It traveled down the line of the boat or whatever, down over the edge of the boat. I mean, I don't know. Heracles, are you still with us mentally? Like, this is so difficult. I've never seen a debate like this. I mean, just the lack of comprehension of literally everything. We have to reinvent we have to revamp the entire system just because of Craig. So how do you measure gravitational waves? They travel down the LIGO arm. Heracles says super dinger, and I'm getting really exhausted with this. I guess I'd have to agree. That's a super dinger. My new question is, does anybody think anybody's going to beat Craig in the amount of super dingers?
Self here. I mean, I don't know, unless he was intentionally trying to be the dumbest guy to ever participate in a flat Earth debate. In which case, congratulations, Craig. You did accomplish that.
Well, the main issue, Mr. One to One, is well, first of all, you still, even if the measurement was accurate, which is a huge question mark regarding whether that technology to measure that is infallible or not. But it still wouldn't tell you what would cause that, which is the whole thing Caleb is getting at.
So
How do
when
you-
when the light goes and comes back, well, that we know it takes to get there and back because light travels at a certain speed in a vacuum. And when that
No, we don't.
changes, we know what speed light travels in the vacuum. It's 100
Have we
meters.
measured the one-way speed of light?
We know the speed that light travels in a vacuum. That's such a can of worms because there's so much arguing in physics on whether or not the speed of light is even constant. So I don't even know how to dissect that. I'm hesitant to go super fallacy dinger or super dinger just because a lot of this stuff is unknown, even though he's claiming it's all definitively known and there's no dissent within the physics community. I mean, I don't even know, like, what are we going to do with that argument? Heracles, do you have an opinion on this? Claiming something is known when there's literal dissent within the scientific community about it. Because as technology improves, like, what is the real speed of light? Like, let's say 500 years from now, if humanity isn't wiped out, they're going to have more accurate tech to measure. Not to mention, if they figure out that ether actually is real and light is traveling through ether, what does that mean for any of those measurements? So would this be a super dinger? I don't know. I'm hesitant to call it a super dinger. I guess we could just leave it as regular fallacies, unless someone has an objection.
Oh man, I mean, Caleb's absolutely decimating this fool. I mean, I don't necessarily have a problem with him calling him out on the speed of light. I mean, that's just a whole different argument. I guess he wants to have it now, which is fine, but I mean, Craig just completely missed the point. Like, he's hallucinating that the prediction or whatever, the measurement, proves the reason behind it. Obviously, false cosmological fallacy, and ignoring the scientific method, variables, and controls, of course. Because Caleb's question was simple. How do you know that how do you know that what the light is doing isn't being affected by electromagnetism versus gravity, the bending and warping of space-time? Because the result of it, what you're measuring, you can only measure what's going on. You can't measure what's causing it. That's why you need the scientific methods, variables, manipulating the variables, and controls. Because otherwise, how do you know what's causing what you're measuring? I mean, this cannot be broken down any simpler, and yet Craig still doesn't get it.
Well, based on the Heracles rule, it wouldn't be a dinger just because of Craig's baseline. But I'm getting pretty fried here. We're going to have to go part 4 on this, actually. I don't think I can make this. There's not a lot left from the part 2 of the original analysis of mine. But yeah, my brain's fried here. I want to keep this as accurate as possible. And so we added the new fallacy combo today, as well as another way to get a super fallacy by basically committing a double fallacy. So that'll be it for now. We're going to have to finish this up. I'm not sure we're going to finish this tomorrow. I have a few true crime streams I have to do. I might even jump on a true crime one later tonight. My brain usually only gets exhausted per subject, so regarding counting fallacies and creating a new fallacy system. It's getting fried. I might jump on later for a true crime stream, or if I do a few true crime streams tomorrow, then we'll be back at this maybe on Tuesday. But I'll post updates in the community tab so everybody can keep up. So that's it for now. We had a lot of laughs as always whenever Craig's on the docket. Yeah, I hope you guys don't blame me, but I mean, this is just insane, man. I've never seen this level of deficiency and goofery. So I mean, it's rough. It's really rough. So I hope everybody enjoyed another edition of the MindShock podcast. If you want to help support the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell for notifications. You can also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube for access to exclusive streams and chats. Like and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Questions, comments, theories, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind. Leave them in the comment section. This is Bruce McGuire signing off.